Someone sneeze.
No, that was
Jared. Jared?
No, it was me.
It's you, but not sneezing.
Yeah. You made a joke. Don't worry about it. The time is gone.
What, I made a joke?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're sort of working today, but
you said a small little pew-pew, okay?
Okay. You don't have to laugh at my jokes when you're not technically properly on the clock, Sin.
No,
she's contractually obliged.
That's the thing, though. It wasn't a joke.
Yeah.
I found it amusing.
Oh, okay.
And yes, you're bad at jokes.
No, I'm not bad at jokes. I'm good at jokes. Look at all the people here. They think I'm good at jokes. Mods, can you ban anyone that says I'm bad at jokes? Thanks. Only one today is an echo chamber. Echo chamber! Right.
Hello, everyone. So welcome to Digital CitizenCon 2951. So it's really, really good to be back in front of the camera and talking to all of you out there.
That's good.
I wish it was in person. As you know, we have been doing CitizenCons for a long time, and last year was the last year we didn't do it because of the pandemic. And we didn't want to go another year without having a CitizenCon, but we felt like this year it was a bit too close to get back to do it in person with all the issues with travel, and we're doing it virtually and digital this year. And I'm hoping next year we'll get to do it in person. So it's been very challenging for all of us. There's about 720 of us who've all been working from home. But you know, a silver lining to that cloud, which is a lot more of you have had more time to play Star Citizen and give us feedback and get engaged. I mean, we, compared to where we were in the last time we had a physical CitizenCon in 2019, the number of daily players that we have in Star Citizen is on average 2 to 3 times.
It seems to be random close-ups of Chris's face just every so often.
Which is fantastic. 2020 was a big year of expansion for us. 21 is also been incredibly great. And we're hoping with some of the features that we're working on, like server meshing, we're working on a bunch of optimizations, quality of life, and maturing, you know, some of the gameplay loops that you're starting to see happen. I mean, we've got some stuff coming up like Death of a Spaceman, where the first part of it, the medical gameplay, is going to be there, and also the beginning of physical inventory with the personal inventory. It's not fully finished yet. Those are two major game changers that are coming very shortly. In fact, they're coming with 3.15, and there's a lot of other things that are just beyond that. And we're going to continue that momentum, and you know, more and more people will be discovering Star Citizen, and more of you will be spending more hours playing it and having fun, giving us great feedback, and we're inevitably inching towards the finish line of having something that we can say, yep, this is the definitive experience.
Sorry, I forgot I had a delay on.
So I'm really excited by that. But let's get back to today. And today is about Digital CitizenCon.
So that's my bad.
And we've got some really great stuff to show you. The first of that is going to be led off by Todd Papy with Ian Leland and David Haddock. And I don't want to spoil it. There's some really great stuff. It's going to use a combination of some features that are coming very soon and some features and content that is a little further down the road. But it's going to give you a taste of life to come in the Star Citizen universe. So without further ado, let me pass it to them.
Mute.
Mute. Tell me when to unmute, Sin.
Yeah, I don't know how long it'll be, but just...
You've got to reload to us. So the reason we're muting is because there's a sizzle reel at the beginning, which is copyrighted music. Is this copyrighted music you can hear, Zin?
Possibly.
Put some music in the background.
But yeah, I totally know what you mean about the cutting of the close up and back again. I thought maybe it was because maybe it wasn't all one take, and it's a good way to cut with while keeping momentum.
That is true.
But it was really jarring.
There was an Inside Star Citizen where they just kept on randomly going up to someone's face. Every like 2 seconds, it was bump, 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 bump. Tricksy little hobbitses. Thank you very much for the sub. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much for all the donations, so I can see later donations coming in. Amazing. The Pappies, I have no idea why you donate so much, but I absolutely adore you. Thank you so much.
So I'm really bad at music. I have no idea if this is copyright music or not.
It's okay. Well, we knew there was going to be a sizzle reel at the beginning with copyrighted music on because CIG warned us. and whether or not Mine and Zin's ad gets shown, we will release that at the end of CitizenCon or a little bit later today. Oh.
What's a sizzle reel anyway?
No one knows.
Okay, I just thought maybe it was like like I don't know, referencing something.
To get people ready for stuff.
I'm gonna Google it.
This looks very, very much like an Eve trailer. Pyro!
Okay, I think you're safe.
Hi, I'm Ian. I'm the art director for Star Citizen.
Hi, I'm Dave. I'm the narrative director at Star Citizen.
So finally, we're saying goodbye to Stanton. It's quite precious to us. We've been talking about it. We've been looking at it. We've been living there for quite a long time. Now it's time to, move the conversation on, start to look at something new. Now it's changed slightly, the jump point side, from what we saw a little while ago. One of the things that was quite important for Chris is he wanted that feeling of something that was quite wondrous, something that was quite amazing. It's not dark, it's not mysterious, it's not hostile, but it's more, like I said, wondrous.
So when we started looking at Pyro, and we had to start looking at how the jump points work when we're traveling from Stanton to Pyro or Pyro to Stanton, and thinking about border security, the infrastructure that's needed there. What's the lore? Just because on one side it's very lawless versus the other side is dealing with the UEE. So we needed to go through and really think about how this was working, and then also with the jump points, how smugglers would work with the secondary and tertiary routes that would lead into the main jump point and then funnel out.
Yeah, we kind of call it, internally we kind of call it the Swiss cheese approach of the, there's sort of the main entrance that you would go through on Stanton, which would be the sort of guarded, have the infrastructure that you had mentioned, the security and stuff like that, but the possibility that there would be alternate ways to kind of get in to bypass that, so which would be beneficial knowledge for smugglers or criminals who are trying to get in under the radar. Yeah. And also it was if there's a lot of infrastructure around it, it sort of created this impression that that infrastructure was responsible for the jump point. When in reality, it's a naturally occurring thing. An interesting balance of make it seem like this is a checkpoint, but at the same time it's something that the ships are creating, not the structures.
So before we go too much further into the Pyro system, let's take a deep dive into the art process with Jake Dunlap, and he's going to be taking us through the authoring process for the Stanton and Pyro jump points.
So much pretty footage.
And that's what I want.
Bringing jump points to the verse has been an interesting journey as we've been designing a new element in our game. We've put a lot of time into creating two solid examples of different types of jump points you'll eventually see all around the verse. One in Stanton and one in Pyro. We've been continuing to use Houdini as the tool to create these gas clouds. The setup we have for them is a parent gas cloud and a child gas cloud. The parent is mainly used as an establishing shot when you arrive in your ship from quantum travel, while the child is used as the main gameplay environment and is placed inside the parent. The child also has a reasonable scale, which keeps your average ship speed in mind. These things aren't nearly the size of real Nebula, if you're curious. But by no means are the jump points small. Here's an example of a Pyro jump point next to Microtech. To explain the process a bit more, we create the parent at a large scale, then cut out a small box in the center of it. Inside the small box, we'll gather the volume data from the parent, up-res that, and then add details. The details will be different depending on what type of gas cloud you want, and if you want to easily fly through it or not. We usually spend time investigating different designs for the gas clouds, but with the Stanton jump point, the work had already been started and used in the 2019 CitizenCon demo. We just had to go through, clean up the Houdini file and get it game ready, with a couple of extra tweaks along the way. Some of the tweaks we made to the parent We're making it feel like more of a structurally sound rotating disc. This was to make it feel like a safe and well-used jump point. The child gas cloud here was changed more dramatically. It used to have a bunch of dark clouds around it. We felt that it was feeling a little bit too closed in, so we spent time morphing the magnetic lines in the center to create a really interesting horizontal, flowing, relaxing composition to visually show you that really Stanton itself is generally a safe place at first glance. The parent gas cloud for Pyro was created with the same process as the Stanton parent, but we changed the shape of the cloud into something more menacing and violent. We wanted the reveal of Pyro to be a clear warning of what you should be expecting throughout the entire system, so we made it very closed in, dense, and very active. We did make it a small challenge to traverse the child, something that won't take too long but should be something to consider when traveling through. Something that helped really quickly create a fun traversal route was creating a white box play area in engine out of solid geometry and flying around it right away. After we were happy with the route, we exported the geometry to use in Houdini, where we converted it to a volume and combined it with the up-resed area of the parent to export that out as the child cloud. We wanted to make sure that these systems feel very different from each other. Some ways in which we did this was by the shape of the jump points. As I had mentioned before, Stanton feels very clean, put together, and generally safe with the disc-like form that it has, but Pyro feels like it's more violent, distressed, and this shows in its form. The comparison is shown well in both of the child clouds. In the Stanton child cloud, we have nice long strands of the magnetic waves that encapsulate the jump point that feel harmonious, beautiful, and free, whereas in the Pyro cloud, it shows almost the opposite. The walls feel like they're closing in on you, moving in unpredictable ways, completely unstable. Your ship could enter into a wall and disappear within a second. Lighting also plays a big role in how we feel about these spaces. You can see these are dramatically different areas in the mood and tone, and lighting is the key to that.
Not sure.
So that's a brief look at jump points. They've evolved quite a bit since last time you saw them.
Jump point.
Enjoy the rest of the show.
Probably Stanton side infrastructure.
So one of the things that players will first probably come across when they come into the Pyro system is the space station. You know, it was discovered a long time ago. It was sort of deemed uninhabitable because it was just too dangerous with that variable flare star going on. So they kind of utilized the system for resources, and then when they kind of tapped out, they just sort of left, and that's when all the sort of squatters came in. So there's sort of older infrastructure built to sustain kind of the mining activities and the gas harvesting and stuff like that, but you know, they just basically left, and then other populations started to slowly move into the system, criminals, squatters, survivors, and whatever, and start to kind of take over what was left behind.
Which gives us some unique gameplay comparatively to Stanton and the space stations there. So with Pyro, since they're in such disrepair, some of them are inhabited, some of them are completely abandoned, and then so players can go and explore. They can go and see what's happened there, whether it's been hit by an asteroid, or if it's there was some sort of conflict there before. But you'll be able to go and explore the different decks and be able to go and meet new people, meet the Frontier lifestyle, enjoy it.
Okay, so before we go to the inside of the stations, we're going to jump now to Eric, and he's going to go in a bit more detail, the concept development process taken when looking at the exteriors.
Hi, I'm Eric Gagnon, Principal Concept Artist on Star Citizen. The goal of that initial step of sketch development is to create something not invited, dangerous, damaged by asteroids, and surrounded by floating debris. Hiding place for Outlaw looks old, decrepit. Lawless, no security force here.
Are they saying there's going to be a load more stations in Pyro other than Ruin stations?
Industrial look,
sounds like it.
Messy, but not abandoned. Some parts are wrecked, but under repair and raw looking. I like to use the black and white sketches to start. It allows us to go very quickly and focus on the shape only. We then try to play with a touch of color to define more of the commercial port platform. We try different schemes to remind us of the whole look with a rusty vibe and brown tones. Adding a touch of light and some context around the sketch allows to see the scale of things and properly view the silhouette. We expand on the idea to play with the mechanism and functionality. This is the color sketches of the asteroid Hunter Harpoon and at different angles. In this sketch, we can clearly feel the arrival of the asteroids and the dismantling or destruction zone. We also need some top angles to properly showcase the size and scale of it. With all those elements in place, we can now build a nice plate of the entire concept for the asteroids Harpoon with all the pieces together. The Shantytown module habitation is a nice idea to add a kind of small city on the outskirts of the space station. So here I sketched those shapes to create something very modular. From the grayscale, it's pretty easy to do a color pass. I played with a color palette that reflects the vibe of Shantytown. In this sketch, here we can easily see how cool the area is going to be. Another angle shot here is pretty nice too. Playing with warm and cold color contrast is interesting. All those different angles help define and expose the different elements of the concept to properly illustrate it. Now we have a nice board of this sketch phase. We apply the same process here for the commercial port platform. The black and white sketches are a good way to go. In this image, we see the silhouette shape sketches for the front of the port platform structure. A quick side view plan here is necessary to well build this design. We fill the form and the ratio and the size of what we want to achieve. And of course, we create a color sketch to see what it could be. We see the industrial look and some potential details to better define and deep dive into. For those, we have a deeper design exploration of this industrial area. Pipes, tanks, angular shapes, and a color touch. Combining 2D and 3D sketches really help properly communicate the design intent. It's a common technique now, but it's really efficient to highlight areas of the concept. Using 3D is also very useful for level designers to validate the size and shape of things when creating the environment in-game. Let's talk about the big repair machinery idea. This machine could be used to repair surfaces damaged by asteroids, inspired from the heavy machinery that we see in mining. Nice to see the overall add-on ideas brought together on a single board. It gives a great look and makes you want to see the next design step.
So this is the sort of stuff I see in studio tours.
We also create a mood board from our different shots. This shows how lighting is used to set the tone of the environment by giving different options and color palettes. Finally, we provide some options for paint of the exterior surfaces. We work from a list of brands and factions that we need to incorporate to the design. We started from the narrative things, worked to build the visual identity of the different brands, exploring different ways to represent them in the environment, stickers, flat surfaces, graffiti, or official paint job. This really brings the sketches alive and set in the universe of Star Citizen. The Outlaw Station are a staple of the Pyro system, and we hope this first exterior concept phase excites you as much as we had fun to create it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Awesome. Looks great.
That's the exterior. So right now we're going to go from the outside and we're going to jump to the interior. Before we really started exploring anything, one of the core concepts that was discussing as a group was the idea of power and the idea of heat. Now, we've got like this big interior layout of this, maybe this old mining station. How would they have adapted the space? You know, they would have, like, okay, we need power here. Okay, that will create heat. So we started thinking about, okay, where would the heat lamps be? And then where would light come from? So just the principal concept of power, creating heat, creating light, that was pretty much the core of the start of the visual development process.
So when we started talking about it from a design side, we needed to make sure that we were covering certain shops, just basic needs for the player. Everything's bare bones. It could be that it used to be a clothing store, now it's a food shop, and so they've converted it. The gangs moved in. You know, it's not what it used to be, and but you see that old skeleton there.
One of the things that definitely we've been talking about with Pyro that we didn't really get to see in Stanton is the idea of the sort of the gang presence. So you know, that idea that they're the sort of local law in the area. So, you know, you might see gang members coming and shaking down some of these shopkeepers for protection money or rent, you know, type thing.
Or even shaking down the player.
Yeah, which would be very fun. not for me, but.
So when we started to explore some of the side areas, there were other factors that we had to cover. Habitation, clinics, you know, players need a place to sleep, to log out, as well as players need a way to get themselves healed. And then we started taking the same treatment or similar treatment that we were doing with the main market area and started to take it into the hubs and how they were possibly repurposed, or the clinics and how those were possibly repurposed.
The one
and just make sure that everything felt cohesive in its raw, natural form. In the way that we have the station structured, we haven't let players go into like living quarters of where the people that lived at the station would be, or even into the lower decks where the power, where the gravity generators are. And this is where we're going to start introducing these areas, and it opens up new opportunities for the players to go explore and do new things. But it's also areas that the gang might want to protect.
Yeah, it offers a lot of possibilities for mission content, you know, whether it's actually maybe working for the gang itself or other kind of little small things you could do inside there to really kind of, drive you deep into the bowels of this thing.
Okay, so that's a little look at the insides of the stations, but now we'll jump to Christian, and Christian's going to take us on a little bit of a deeper dive into the concept development process of the inside of the stations.
Give me more, Christian.
Hi, my name is Christian Doretz. I'm a senior concept artist on the environment team.
He looks beautiful.
And we're going to look at the concept development for these.
Got his hair on the wrong way round.
So first off, we looked at the heat map. So there is a lot of what I said. The electricity is gone, the heating is gone, and the breathable air, the oxygen is gone. So there is pretty much all of those connected areas. They are lifeless in a way, right? So you wouldn't settle down somewhere in between those empty corridors. We were trying to sort our thoughts and get them on paper, right?
That guy doesn't have a hole in his head.
So we were exploring different ideas that we
That's
on the
because he's got
concept
proper
team had
lighting.
in mind. So we were thinking about pathways
That's he could afford
that the
it.
player and the NPC could take. So what would
Sure,
happen?
you could
we were thinking
afford
about
it.
what would happen if all of a sudden one pathway is blocked off or another one will open up, right?
Why have I got a hole in my head?
We were thinking about verticality and how the players or the NPCs can traverse all of those interesting areas that are, in the end, pretty ominous, right? So think about, there are some people just screwing off side panels on the wall, or they are screwing off ceiling panels, and you would see all of the maintenance areas behind it. So we'd see a lot of struts, a lot of working areas. There's cables hanging. So those were the very first sketches where we could see what those eventually could evolve into. And we also started then slowly with some loose 3D sketches, so getting everything into 3D, and it's pretty much evolved over time where we could talk to the environment guys, and we were asking for some of the current rest stops geo and some of the textures, and then getting them into 3D, and we were just changing up all of the props, all of the side panels, or all of the whole the environment. So we could, looking back at the references, then convey this feeling. We could introduce more dirt, we could introduce some damaged panels, side panels, and pretty much explore this side area, right? And the big advantage of this is that we can make the environment how we like. So one thing that we did is kill all the lights because we don't need lighting. We want to create our own lighting, and this is what I said earlier. The current rest stops are super bright. They're family friendly, but now we want to make it ominous. We want to make it dark mood. We want to make it super dark with the players always feeling kind of in danger, and especially with the gang members in mind, right? So this would allow us to create one of the very early, or one of the earlier 3D explorations, which then lead to one of the final concept arts, or the final implementation of this. So when we were at the point where we were kind of okay, or where we thought like, okay, this is an environment that we want to see, then we took care about the last 20%. So the last 20% in this case means having a final render and painting over. So we were just painting over in Photoshop and doing some more refinements for the mood and the lighting. We were painting in some of the decaling and some of the graffitis, because it is ultimately easier to do all these things in 2D than in 3D and caring about the materials. So we were able to just refine the final concept in this regard. And this wasn't a straight process from A to B. It was an iterating process. So in between, if you're looking at some of the other concepts, for example, the barriers, we were at one point thinking about what would happen if we introduce barriers that the gang members then would set up on one point. So what does that mean for you as a player? What is the player doing, or what is the player doing at this point? So will he encounter these gang members? Will he try to find a way around? Is he going to use some of the ladders or the underground vents, for example? So we were changing the concepts here and there, more or less. And this leads to, in the end, having a nice variety of concepts, or different types of concepts that we then could cherry pick the best parts of it, or in other teams, the environment team, the design team could cherry pick the best ideas from those concepts. And this was pretty much a rundown of the concept development for the Pyro space station's interior.
Thanks, Cristiano. That looked appropriately scummy.
So we've been talking a lot about the insides of the stations. We've been looking at a lot of the concept art. But now we can jump to Josh, and Josh is going to talk about one of my favorite parts of the process, and it's when we take some concepts and we start to do some ideation, some visual development in the engine.
Hi, my name's Josh Van Zoolen. I'm the principal environment artist here at Cloud Imperium Games. Today, we're going to be going through the Pyro space station's visual target and pre-production sort of things that we're going to be doing for these rundown/outlaw
His head doesn't look upside down enough.
So what I have here right in front of me now is obviously the food court from our Stanton space stations. We've just dragged the wear up on all of them. So now we're getting all of this really nice grime on all of these surfaces, right? So if I turn off my working lights, which hopefully are gonna, produce that mood that we're after. So I'll turn on that right now. So a number of things have happened right in front of us, right? You can instantly see we've got lots of heavy fog coming in. Don't pay too much attention to the particles now. I'll go into them a little bit later. We've got some light panels up here shooting through the rafters, and we've got another one over here as well, right? So we're gonna do a quick little thing here. It's adding in some cables, right? And now this is really important, not only to achieve the art direction, but it gives us a really nice level of parallax within the scene, right? We have a couple of design constraints within this space as well. One of those being we have a gang and then a general civilian population, right? Now, one of the things that we wanted to do in terms of that design in this particular space was separate it out in like a kind of class type system, right? So we're going to start to explore some of the requirements of that. One of that being that like I mentioned before, you can't get up here unless you're in favor with the gang. So we need to put in the instruments that are going to help portray that, and that is a checkpoint, right? So, and just a side note, all of this stuff is super work in progress and nothing is final. So don't read too much into it. So from here, we're missing a few bits and pieces, right? But one of the ways that we're gonna solve that is with graffiti. All right, so I'm gonna turn on those decals now. And you can start to see that the walls here are starting to disappear a little bit. It's a very subtle effect in this particular area, but you'll start to see how much more it comes through in others, right? So moving on from here, we need to start putting the stuff in the environment. So bear with me for a sec when I turn this on. All right, so we've got here is a lot of stalls, right? We really want to get that cramp vibe in, like that was kind of similar in the concept, and start seeing how far we can push the limitations of what we can do in the engine, but also what we can do with our technical systems as well, right? One of the things that was immediately apparent to us is that AI is really tricky to deal with when in tight and enclosed spaces, right? So we need to look at areas like this here and this here to make sure that it's wide enough that a few AI can pass each other or a player and not, you know, look completely gross, right? Now, I mentioned lighting before. So I'm gonna turn off the working lights that we've got so far, and you'll start to see what I mean. So we've got a whole bunch of stalls here at the moment. The entire scene is being lit by the stalls itself. This has already come a long way, and the stalls themselves have had a bit of a lighting pass, so this is already starting to look quite nice, but we're not getting, you know, that thickness that we were getting up on the top level, right? We're not getting that little bit of life to a certain extent. And we're also getting these areas here where they just fall completely into darkness, which is not fun. So obviously, like I said before, we'd be doing lighting as we go through this process, but just to see how much of an impact that pass can do on an environment like this, we'll just turn it on for you. So you start to instantly see we've now got a lot more thickness within the environment. And if I just double check just to make sure that our lights are generating correctly, cool. So we're getting a lot more voluminous lighting now. We're getting all of these heaters coming in now, the heat shimmering off them. We've got these little portable ones lighting up the place. We've got some ones that are hanging from the roof, ones that are over in the corners and stuff like this, right? So we're starting to get a lot more mood in this. This is starting to feel really nice now. Now, what I was mentioning in terms of the rain, right? So yes, we're talking about the rain now. Why is there rain inside, right? So this is generally a really cold station. And when people are in this area that's in the center, because there's so much stuff happening here, it's starting to get warmer, right? You've got the heaters here, you've got the gang that is kind of maintaining a lot of this stuff and producing a lot of the heat themselves. This is prime real estate for where everyone wants to be, right? So what happens when you have this many people cooking food in this one small area, you know, breathing hot air, that sort of thing, it all starts to rise in this environment, and it starts to get that massive cavern, right, that we've got up here, all the way up to the roof there. As it goes up, it starts to cool down, right? And we start to get precipitation inside, where it starts to rain. And even in many instances, we start to get a little bit of ice coming through as well.
You're right, recycle, mate.
So that means once it's all fallen down here, it's actually quite wet and damp. It's still cold and a little bit warm around heaters, but it's generally quite damp because of that weird kind of event. Now, the rain as it currently sits is just a placeholder asset that we're borrowing from Squadron, and that will have to obviously be remade to suit the amount of rain that we want to have within this environment, which won't be, you know, crazy, but it serves as a proof of concept for what we're trying to achieve,
that because they don't have it regulated
that
properly,
is pretty much Pyro Stations. I hope you really enjoyed seeing the breakdown that we've done here today, learning a little bit about the process.
I could imagine that the station's probably
mostly
powered
a little bit more of the earlier process
mostly
and
powered
problem
by like solar panel power and stuff like that.
I hope you really enjoyed the rest of CitizenCon here today.
We're going to make a killing sending links to them.
I'll catch you later.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Josh. That was looking really good. All right, so as we continue our process of exploring the Pyro system, Now I think it'd be good to look a little bit at the planets and moons that populate the system. Now, one of the things we thought would be interesting to talk about is how do we design a system from the ground up? As with all of this, we always start from narrative, you know, before we put any pen to paper or we have any discussions about player experience.
You've already been given one.
We always start from, you know, the world that, you know, Dave and others have kind of built.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and again, it's also the thing of, you know, the Pyro, I think, was first initially conceived very early on in the process, but once we finally are tackling it from a realistic, practical, how we're going to build this, what is each planet going to look like, you know, it's important, you know, to ask more questions about, to flesh it out more, because we kept it intentionally kind of vague, because we want the art team to, you guys to do what you do and the designers to do what they do.
So when we started that exploration process, we knew we had like a ballpark that we needed to stay in. So we literally thought, okay, how do we design a system? And fundamentally, it kind of comes into maybe 3 key areas. So because we're a space game, the establishing shot of that planet is very, very important, because it describes everything from, you know, continent breakup, fundamental palette. So right from the get-go, we started to sketch in ideas of what the key establishing shots were going to be like. And then from there, then we jump into key art. So key art is basically on the surface, what is the mood, what's the tone that we're expecting to see. And as you're saying, like the first one we wanted to tackle was Pyro 1, because, you know, David described this wonderful picture, and it was already clear in our minds about what it wanted to look like. So we hit that first, and, you know, we wanted something hostile, we wanted something hazardous. Also, as part of this process is we knew our current tech limitations, but we also knew what we wanted to do in terms of our future tech, you know, future planet tech, weather, you know, so we kind of went crazy with ideas as we was exploring. So we went through the various planets, did some key art, and again, put them up on the board, and just to validate, we are keeping within that palette, but we're getting that diversity. We're getting that diversity of color, hue, value structure, silhouettes, composition, because even within something like Stanton, there's variety, you know. That was very important for me and the team, where you want to feel like you're on a space opera. You can travel around, but now we're going to a completely other system. So we continued that ideation process there. So we had the establishing shots, we had some key art, and then from there is we create like what we call like breakout packs. This is where, when we're talking through with design about, you know, what are the interactables that the player maybe will come across, what are the minables, what are the harvestables, and then from there we start to build out literal breakouts for, or almost asset packs.
New World
that will go to the
New
team.
World has taught me to harvest everything.
Now from there, like, we did a first pass exploration. And what we did is we put it all together on a single board for Chris to have almost like a commander's view of a new system. You know, we showed it to yourself, Dave, we showed it to Chris, we showed it to Todd, and right, you know, on one sheet, you've got the establishing shots, you've got the key art, you've got the breakout. And for me personally, that's how I like to work. I like to see that, like I said, a commander's view of an entire system. And then from there, you can kind of tweak, adjust, and, you know, mold things into what play experience we want to put forward. So that was a snapshot of the visual exploration process we use when designing a system from the ground up. Now we can take a break from us talking and go to an art video, a sizzle video created by the art team. Yes. And what this will show is, it will show a kaleidoscope of planets and moons from Pyro, and it will also showcase some of the latest and greatest art techniques and processes and tools that the art team have.
This isn't going to use copyrighted music, is it? This isn't the sizzle thing.
They said it was just the beginning, so I have no idea.
Did it sound like copyrighted music at the beginning of the stream?
Yes. I told you I'm bad at music.
I don't know if this is copyright or not. No, this sounds like Star Citizen music to me. It is Star Citizen. I recognise this song. This is what I want to see. 2 hours of this. It is very pretty. Those smoke effects are amazing.
Awesome. I'm fully in love with Pyro, and hopefully from seeing that video, hopefully you guys are too. So as a continuation now, we can jump to Sebastian, and Sebastian will talk to you a little bit more about the cloud authoring process and some of our latest cloud tech. Then we can jump to Maximilian. Maximilian will talk a little bit about geology creation, how we create that type of biome. And then lastly, we can go to Özlem, and Özlem will go into a lot more detail about how we take some of the concept art that we've been showing of the botanicals and how we interpret that to in-game artwork.
Hi, my name is Sebastian, and I'm a principal environment artist on the Planet Content team. I'll be talking a bit about the data that's defining the visuals of the volumetric clouds and how we create it. Crusader was our first astronomical object that made use of the volumetric cloud tech that's being built by Carsten Wenzel and others. While working on Crusader, we learned a lot on what kind of data gives us which results, and what is better to be avoided. With the tech being new, we also needed all new workflows for it. We are currently building more tools for producing the data, so we expect to get better, more complex results in less time in the future. We are evaluating everything from a very manual process that involves painting every pixel to a fully procedural one with little to no artist input, and we will probably end up somewhere between the two. This essentially means that what you are about to see is very likely subject to change. Due to the way the shader works, we can either throw random data at it and hope for happy accidents, or we can be very specific with the data and what kind of cloud formations come out of it in certain areas of the planet. For most use cases, there are two types of textures that need to be created. The first of which is the global property map, which determines what type of cloud is being used at any point on the planet's surface. It is also used for controlling the color placement of non-water-based clouds, but I'll get to that later. The other map is for defining the types of clouds and is named accordingly. The cloud type map allows us to control the cloud density and the impact of the two separately tiling 3D noises, which add detail and definition to what would otherwise be fairly low-resolution shapes. The way the two textures interact is maybe best compared to forming a vase out of clay on a pottery wheel, and that's kind of what we're going to do now. In this video, we are revolving half the silhouette of a vase around a circular pattern, which gives us a vase-like shape in 3D space. The big difference to a pottery wheel though is that we can not only feed it data in the shape of a circle, but ultimately whatever shape we want. With the density channel, we can control how thick the clouds appear. White pixels represent very dense clouds, black pixels produce no clouds at all, and then we also have everything in between. There's always a tiny bit of impact from the tiling noises, which you can see to have an effect on the lower density regions. The shaping noise and its control texture are the most impactful in terms of turning a nicely shaded volume into something we can clearly identify as clouds. How much it gets to affect the shape of the clouds depends on the brightness in the corresponding channel of the cloud type map. By combining density and shaping noise, we can model everything from dense clouds to soft, more ethereal shapes, and everything in between. The last of the cloud type map channels controls the erosion noise. It is lower resolution than the shaping noise, since its main purpose is to add an extra layer of small detail. We usually just add it everywhere, unless we specifically want soft clouds with less definition. Black values add details in the way the tiling noise is authored, while white values invert the noise, and medium gray values mean that the noise has no impact. Maybe you can already get a feeling for the complexity of the system and how every pixel in every channel can have a dramatic effect on the end result.
Two people love each other very much, they sort of run each other.
Another thing we can change are the tiling 3D noises themselves.
And then you have to
by default, cauliflower-like noise is used for the shaping to model those fluffy sheep-like cumulus clouds. But by changing it to a different 3D noise, we can produce some more abstract cloud shapes that wouldn't normally occur on Earth. This is an area, in combination with different global data, we keep investigating to produce more alien cloud formations in the future. We've been advancing this approach with Pyro 5, another gas giant, which brings me to the other use of the global property map. It has a second channel, which, in combination with a color gradient, is used to control the global color of the clouds for not so physically correct coloring of the gas giants. We sometimes have to restrain ourselves to not make brightly colored balls of cotton candy. There are a lot more settings that allow us to tweak everything from how the clouds are shaded and shadowed, over the global impact and frequency of the detail noises, to parameters that drastically change what results the textures I've shown you today produce. You'll have to bear with us as we'll figure out if there's a best combination of settings and how those might change once all the features that are still planned eventually get added. By now you've probably seen a fair amount of volumetric clouds as part of this year's CitizenCon, and are quite likely to see a bunch more. Because of that, and since I'm still an artist at heart, I leave you with this bad drawing of a cat instead of more epic cloudscapes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the cat.
Hi, my name is Max and I'm a senior environment artist at CIG. I am part of the Planet team where my focus is on planet and asset creation. I want to give you some insight into how we transform simple terrain shapes to a final biome, plus a little preview of what you can expect in the future. When creating a new biome, we start by assigning ground textures to the terrain geometry. For this research and development desert biome, we chose a selection of different types of sand and soil. For additional depth and detail, we have the option to use displacement mapping. The next step is adding our first layer of ground cover assets. In our game, ground cover is any low-cost asset up to knee height, which does not require collision and allows us to use a lot of these assets to create a nice level of density. Here we use a mix of gravel, patches of moss, and dry grass. After that, we add slightly bigger assets in the form of clusters of desert bushes to give context to the smaller assets and add variety.
So good.
We finish the object scattering pass by adding individual larger rocks and arrangements of small rocks, which give the player a better understanding of how far away something is when walking, driving, or flying over a planet. For performance reasons, we use a range of settings like randomized rotation and scale values to get as much variety as possible out of the number of assets we created, to mimic a level of complexity that feels organic and comparable to what you find on Earth. Something that we have been missing on our current planets and moons are massive rock formations due to tech limitations. Some of these limitations have since been solved. For example, we are now able to render assets much further. Because of that, we recently kicked off a research and development phase during the production of the Pyro system to find workflows for the creation and distribution of cliffs. Full disclosure though, this is early in development and heavily work in progress, but we still wanted to give you a little glimpse of what to expect in the future. The challenge for us will be to figure out how we can make these assets look as good as possible from all angles. If a player walks up to them on foot, they must look just as good as when a player decides to land his ship on the highest point of a cliff.
Why is this work in progress? That looks great.
To add an even more epic level of scale to our game. That's it for me. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of CitizenCon.
It's probably really resource intensive or something.
I'm part of the organics team. Today I want to talk a bit about how we build the different biomes on Pyro 3. Pyro 3 is a planet with very distinct biomes. For example, we got the yellow moss biome that is a strong contrast to the dark volcanic regions. We have some icy areas, boulder fields, acidic fields, different coastlines, and a lot more. When working on a biome, the first thing we do is to have a look at the concept art. We do an asset breakdown for all the elements we need to recreate the scene. By doing so, we get more information about what kinds of rocks and vegetation assets we need, the proportions of the assets in relation to the character, the distribution and frequency of those assets on the planet, but also the amount of coverage per biome on the planet. We can also get information about the color palette, the terrain colors.
What did she say the yellow stuff was? Moss?
On the coastlines.
Yeah, moss.
The last thing we can see from the concepts is the asset and ground materials. We also try to reduce the amount of the asset packs because of performance and time constraints. Instead of doing 50 unique rocks, we can achieve the same result by using just 3 with our procedural scattering system, since the assets will be scaled and rotated randomly. After figuring out all the necessary elements, we start with the whiteboxing phase. This means doing a very quick mock-up of the scene by using very simple assets. The white boxes should just represent the shape and color of the final object. We do that to see if the asset breakdown we did beforehand is working in the 3D space as well. At this stage of the process, we can still change the whole look of the scene if we don't like the outcome yet. We can say, let's make the rocks 5 times bigger, or blue instead of red, and so on. Or we realize we need to do some research on a specific asset to solve it visually, which was the case for the moss, for example. When doing R&D on the moss, we were trying different shapes and sizes, and we also had to figure out how to do the moss strands that are covering the whole mesh. To make the workflow for the moss strands a bit easier, we used Houdini to
I thought
procedurally
the yellow was sulfur
them.
as well, but I think it's
Otherwise,
it's moss.
it would have been too
it's
time-consuming to place
moss.
every single moss strand by hand, since there are several thousands of them. After figuring out how to do the moss strand, we still didn't like the overall shape of the moss, as it was a bit too blobby and yellow. We wanted something that looked a bit more natural and integrates better into the terrain, so we created some rocks with a moss blend on top instead. We broke up the moss shape even further because it looked a little bit too molten, and we added different kinds of moss strands to get a little bit more variety. In the end, all these things got us to a result that we were satisfied with. The usual approach to setting up a biome is to start with the largest elements first and work your way to the smallest one. If we take the moss preset as an example, we would start by adding the largest elements first, then adding some smaller moss patches around it to create a nice fall off. We continued with adding some flatter grass to make it sit nicer on the terrain. But then we realized we needed something bigger to bring the elements closer together, so we decided to add some high grass as well. The final steps are adding some ground cover like small rocks or tiny moss. As you can see, while building a biome, we need to do several iterations to get the best visuals. Thank you for watching.
It's very pretty.
That is a lot of effort just for moss.
That's it, exactly what I was thinking. It's a huge amount of effort for the biome.
And Oslam for showing us their work. So when we started looking at outposts and started really from a ground up on how to make it so that there's more diverse gameplay in there. The player can approach it in multiple different routes. There can be combat encounters. There can be social encounters. So we needed to kind of rebuild and rethink the way that we were doing this. We started honing in on what was working, what wasn't working, and then did a lot of adjustments.
I like what they're showing for Pyro, but I'm not overly impressed yet by anything. Like,
we've had outposts in our game
cool
for some time.
What would impress you?
You know, when we
don't know. Let's have a look at outposts. Some sort of gameplay demo is what I'm wanting. But maybe we're not going to get that.
Fundamentally thinking about these as modules, thinking about them as thematic modules, and very specific. Then, already like the mind was going of like, okay, we're going to need a kind of like a paradigm shift in terms of how we visually present these. What could these settlements kind of feel like? And as with everything with outposts, it's a gameplay or it's a location archetype. It's the smallest, probably one of the smallest location archetypes that we have, and then in time that will lead to villages and towns and
thinking about how we wanted to push this forward. I mean, Chris has always talked about putting outposts into players' hands, and so we needed to think about how would this expand? How would the players be able to make these homes feel, homes or outposts or even businesses feel unique for the way that they want to play? And then there were even tools that we had to create in order to actually be able to embed these into the ground and make sure that it worked much better than what we did in Stanton, because with those we had to have them kind of on stilts and just the points of contact were very limited for the ground.
Right. If I connect these modules together, how do we get something that doesn't feel like?
Well,
me play bases.
I know that design.
Give me the bases.
We came up, in particular, Andreas and Dan came up with a long list of things. Okay, well, here's what we'll need in HABs. Here's what we'll need, for utilitarian. Here's what we'll need for defenses. Here's what we'll need for power and some oxygen, life support, so on and so forth. So there was a very long list, and then it's how can we take those and make them feel unified and visually unified together.
Yeah.
There is a lot more.
Fundamentally, the thing that probably got us the most excited is finally we've started to think about these as like unified settlements, base building. So as you can see on some of the concepts, we deliberately presented early exploration shots in this kind of like semi-isometric view to see, how does it feel if I'm laying out my base? How would these modules kind of, tie together? And it kind of got the team excited, and finally we were thinking, all right, these settlements are going to be more than just, like a single outpost, but more like a collection of modules. So just to continue on with the module building and the module creation, we can jump to Christian, and Christian can talk in a bit more detail about the visual development process we did for creating the exteriors of these new outposts.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the colonialism, and now I'm going to show you a little bit more about the modules. So the very first thing that we did was creating all the primitives and all the primitive shapes into 3D. So as you can see here, we have a lot of variety, right? There's the cubic coming in, there's the cylinder coming in, the spheres coming in. For example, if I take this building over here and I duplicate it and move it around, I could just simply grab some of the other ones and combine them together. And you will see later on that this is one of our archetypes, or one that we pretty much liked, right? So you can see here already there's a lot of variety of entrances, maybe some garages, maybe some smaller entrances for those NPCs or for the players, right? And if I zoom in,
I like the idea of having player bases. Tell you that.
You can already see like how they react to the environment or the overall scale, right? So if I pan over here and you see these buildings on the back in the background, so you're always having a first-person standpoint or a first-person view. So we were not only creating those entrances, but also smaller details, and very briefly looking into the modules. So what you can see here is the very first concepts for the solar panels, for example, or the top-mounted, the roof-mounted solar panels. In the background, you see some other nice details that we can then just pick and put on our buildings, right? And some of the very last that we did is then pretty much those. So those were one of the archetypes. And you see there are small buildings for housing or housing buildings. There are some building types that are more communal. We have some secondary and tertiary buildings like those radio towers. If you imagine you're a colonist on a planet, right? There are multiple settlements on a planet. How would they communicate with each other? So we have kind of a radio tower, or some of those cooling devices. So if you imagine maybe there's something underground, there's an even bigger facility underground because you're on a very hostile planet environment. So you want to store your very sensitive data underground, and we were looking at those hints of life. Maybe you are a kind of a farmer. So you see already this is the first archetype.
The process they went through for building
there are some storage spaces coming in here. There. So where would you store your oxygen or your water, gases,
and these steps towards
all of this is just a consideration from our side. Going over to the next one, This is more pyramidical, so
this might be very similar to what we build as player bases in the future.
The same materials, or changing up the materials. So
they might give some more information on that in a minute.
Again, more concrete, and the color palette is changing. There is some of the storage coming in, and going then over to the next one, it is again looking at different materials. There is some storage buildings that are not in one big storage facility, but it's divided into smaller parts. So you have to walk around your sediment and see, like, okay, I can put some stuff in here, but if I need something else, then I need to walk over there. And there is some playing around with some more entrances and windows. How do they react to the environment, right? So this was just one of the very many files that we created. So those are mostly buildings, but we have different files for assets and props and
that little refinery station. It's very much like the refinery, the little
main architectural style that we wanted to
Apex
to see more involved.
Similar, yeah.
Right? So just a
they've probably got the same sort of
version of the refinery, for example. But
reference
all of this
imagery.
in the end was given us the opportunity to just cherry pick the best ideas that we felt appropriate for this specific colonialism style, right? And where other people were able then to just grab the best parts and then use it in the actual game engine. Yeah, this was pretty much the concept development for the colonialism modules. I hope you have a great time, and wish you all the best for the next panels that are coming up.
Awesome, thanks Cristiano. So that pretty much covers the work we've been doing on the exteriors. So now let's jump to the interiors. So we pretty much had to follow that same ideation process that we did for the exterior, but now for the interior. Now, slightly more simple, we knew there was a few key areas that we needed to design. First, it was the social space. You know, this is basically these kind of communal hubs. We knew we wanted like that open kitchen, seating areas, windows, an area where people could kind of hang out and, you know, relax. And then second to that was habitation. You know, we knew these are going to need to be abodes. We knew we needed bathrooms, hab units. But again, nothing in here would be, you know, pre-manufactured. So we wanted actual beds, not racks of beds. So everything about this process was about, you know, creating a design which you would look at and relate to and think, oh, I could see myself living there. I could see someone living there for quite a long period of time. So in habitation,
in fact,
you know,
got
soft surfaces, soft shapes. But again, something which
they're going to be
fairly integrated into the core architecture. In contrast to that, we knew we needed technical spaces. You know, these could be used in the future to be, I don't know, soil processing rooms or anything really within a technical bracket. So this one was quite a tricky one because, again, we needed to describe a feeling of age and, you know, a type of historical depth in this. So we tried a few you know, visual cues, like, you know, there's the physical tape deck, you know, the clicky buttons.
Happy face.
You know, again, to give you that feeling of like, all right, this isn't necessarily like a modern technology level, you know. And then the last major visual archetype was engineering. So these are the type of spaces. It could be a power room or an engine room, or some areas if your armor got beat up, you could, you know, repair your armor in there. Basically, it's a language which will enable us to create a variety of like engineering type spaces. And then once we'd established a spread of visual archetypes, we knew that they were all working well together. We could take that as a format and then start to think more about actual themes that we wanted in these outposts.
Yeah, kind of looking at who would be the people that would be inhabiting it, what are the circumstances that would drive them to be there. And so we sort of came up with, like, I call it the triangle of kind of the edge points of the independent, the outlaw, and the corporate. And, you know, where the inhabitants would fall somewhere in that spectrum of 3 points. And it's also important to note too, you know, that this stuff would be applicable for the stuff we've done in Stanton. Like if we wanted to add these backwards in Stanton as well, that it wasn't just exclusively Pyro based.
Tom Yard.
Basically, when we was doing the design process, we pretty much focused on independent, mainly because that was our baseline. It was very easy to kind of design these and visually design these spaces to, is it like an independent farmer or is it an independent miner? And then with that, we wanted to really create an experience where you walked into one of these outposts and it feels old. It feels relatable, but it doesn't feel recognizable, kind of similar to if you went to a historic ruin or a historic part that you'd never really been to before.
Or, yeah, somebody's old farm.
Exactly. So we did a lot of exploration process of like, what type of artifacts would you find there? You know, how did people used to decorate the house in this time period? You know, you'd still see patterns, surfaces, shapes in these independent outposts.
Yeah, even early versions of modern technology. So you could see that, you know, oh, this is like the mobiGlas I have, but it's an older mobiGlas, or just as an example.
But also when we were, even just to back up a little bit, when we're talking about the planets, we have a certain style, or we have certain amounts of points of interest that we want to go to, how we pull the player around the universe. And so Dave and I and Will and others sit down and talk and say, all right, what do we need here? And all right, well, we need mining facilities. And then that helps to inform Ian and the other design teams and our teams of, all right, is that an independent theme? Is it a corporate theme? Is it an outlaw theme? So these are all kind of layers, but the first and foremost, it's, oh, this is farming, or this is mining, or this is, you know, cargo.
Because looking at something like Pyro 2, which, you know, again, starting from that sort of original Précis sentence of the planet, was the idea, was like that was a heavily mined out planet that had been kind of stripped of a lot of resources. So there would be remaining infrastructure that would have been corporate back in the day, but is now independent or now even an outlaw setting. So, and then there would be the ones that would just be a straight independent one and stuff like that. But yeah, exactly like you said, you know, we'd start with that sort of the base and then apply the theming to it to kind of.
When we're thinking about the theming, we kind of wanted like a space catalog, like a furniture catalog. So I know this is quite big for Chris, is we kind of went down that process of, okay, let's design this one independent outpost in a few different ways. Like, how could people have decorated it in many different ways? And it's quite a fun process because you basically create space furniture catalogs, which again are going to be ways for
space furniture.
Ways for the developers.
I don't want a space furniture catalog.
Some world build, but you know,
a game.
Maybe it's a way for people to
furniture,
decorate their own spaces. You know. When we're thinking about the outlaw versions of these outposts, again, the process is very similar. You think about the visual rule sets which would turn this into an outlaw outpost, namely, you know, has it been taken over by hostile intent? You know, is the signs of combat, is the signs of destruction still so present? The actual physical act of occupying one of these outposts, have they defended it, have they boarded it up?
Yeah, it could be any number of situations. Yeah, it could be outlaws are squatting here and they're operating it as a base, which makes it a potential combat space. Or is it, you know, was it potentially an independent refinery that outlaws attacked and killed everybody there, and now...
Is it a drug facility, so on and so forth?
Exactly.
And then lastly, on with the corporate, you know, it's something that we really want to advance out into in the future, but that feeling that this location is owned by a corporate umbrella, you know, that would tie into the branding. You know, maybe it ties into the costumes that you'd expect the NPCs to be in there. You know, so there's a huge amount of visual world building that we can do to, you know, present these outposts in a few different ways.
And even potentially reputation as well. Like we talked before about that idea that you know, if you do missions for a corporate outpost, that it, you know, reflects in your general relationship with that corporation.
I mean, that ties into the clan tags. Like, maybe you've just come from one of the space stations that, you know, was occupied by a certain gang type, and then they sent you to a settlement on one of the surfaces of Pyro, and clearly it's been tagged by a different gang. So you basically want that read and that consistency throughout. Now, one of the outpost themes that I was quite excited about getting into was the idea of a trading outpost. We've been talking about buying and selling for a while, but thinking about it in a frontier context, it's almost like the money's kind of worthless, but it's more about the ability to barter or trade. So fundamentally, I thought it'd be cool that if we kind of design a module which focuses around one of these trading posts. So within a planet, it's where people would kind of trek to and barter or trade components and then go back. We was talking about the idea of if I had a farm in the middle of nowhere, like would I want a load of credits or would I want that one component that kept my farm going? So we did. We took that idea and we ran with it, and we did some visual exploration into what would a trading post be like on one of these frontier outposts. So as you can see on the images, we wanted that feeling of the majority of the stuff around this outpost is pretty much junk. Spaces isn't at a premium, so they just keep it outside. Maybe it's rusting, maybe it's rotting, maybe it's getting overgrown. But I love that idea is as you're approaching one of these settlements, it's very easy to understand, all right, this is a trading post because there's just all of this stuff like hodgepodge around the outside.
Well, and it opens up another aspect to it, which is the characters who inhabit it, because the sort of general shop experience that you have with the storekeeper is very conventional. This is what we've done so far has been a lot of franchise stores, actual companies that own, that are selling wares, who have customer service and stuff like that. And the idea being that out here, the experience is going to be much more different. It's not going to be that polished. Exactly. It's going to be much more of a personal interaction with somebody. So it's been really fun talking with, the AI and behavior guys to try and work out exactly like how is that dynamic supposed to work and feel like for the player.
All right, cool. So that was a little bit about the interiors of these outposts. So let's throw it over to Eric now, and he can go into a lot more detail into the visual design process we did for the interiors.
Hello, I am Eric Gagnon, Principal Concept Artist on Star Citizen. Today I will present the interior colonialism outpost concept and explain a bit how the pre-production process works. The goal is to create an interior design for the Homestead Colonialism Outpost. It was the first time we had to create a timeless design look. We have the objective to create something warm and with a cozy feeling interior. At the beginning, we started from this concept art made by Christian Dorwitz. We have a lot of information in there to inspire the interior design. In those interiors, we have a specific zones. Social area, place to eat together, play game, leisure, the bedroom, place to relax, have a proper personal space, and of course, sleeping. The engineering room, the place for the building machine who maintains the possibility to survive there. The technical room, the appropriate space to analyze minerals, some elements of the planet entrance, used for storage material and stuff to go outside. At the beginning, we had an overview of the plant that's helped to organize the zone. To create all of those areas, we need to do a lot of exploration and design. Social area. For those sketches, we want a centerpiece on the ceiling. Could be a light, fan, or whatever that could be cool. We feel the curvy shape of that space. Here on this sketch, I play with a very
similar to ships,
value
like they need power,
in the greenish color.
Power transfers in the
that one is the best. Long vertical windows from the side, let the light inside a lot. After validation of the most relevant sketch, we do a 3D blockout. As you see, this 3D blockout follows very closely to the last sketches. From the screenshot of the 3D blockout, I did a sketch over in a gray tone value. That helps to better organize the coloring phase to make sure all the elements fit and will live together. After this, I like to do a 2D elevation concept. It's a good way to make sure all elements fit together and the ratio proportions between each of them. The final key shot of the social area brings it alive. Nice lighting comes from the windows. Cozy mood gives a soul to this social area. Now my concept art co-workers extract the elements from this key shot and break down
how
the
process comes together
to define more accurately.
Yeah, as someone said in chat, we've seen concept art
radial contour done by Danny
I'm okay with seeing some more for some bits.
That concept is the perfect blueprint to start the production. The color lighting people food is there on this one. More close-up version on specific zones of the radial kitchen counter. Some explanation are had to properly convey the intent of each part. All the details are there to define a fully functional stove. For the bedroom area, the process is the same as the social area. The sketch phase is essential. As you see here is an example of grayscale sketch. From one of those shots, we get a validation from art directors and CR. And boom, this is the final one. To detail the engineering room, we again go back to the painting technique. This process again is key to send us in the right direction. The detail of the machinery, cabling, metal grates really help convey the ambience of the room and also informs what players will have to do when they go to this place. For the technical room, we wanted to make sure the technology came true. Again, it's the same process where we start from manual painting to set the tone and then deep dive into color, elevation, and then the final key piece. To make the homestead a living space, the bathroom props are important to define the functionality of futuristic
I need pee-pee and poo-poo room.
Finally, let's exit by the entrance. This is the first sketch exploration I did for Star Citizen. The goal of the homestead entrance is to show what the player has access to and set the overall ambience of the place. A huge thanks to all for helping to make the final result in the game match the amazing work that is produced during pre-production. I sincerely hope you will enjoy living in those homestead in Star Citizen. Thanks everybody.
Thanks Eric, awesome stuff.
Now that we've shown a lot of art and talked a lot of theory, we want to get into game and show off what we've been working on. We're going to be showing you kind of multiple playthroughs and how it changes based off of what you do and how you have faction with the certain game. So here we are waking up in 400i that will be released in 3.15. This is the competitor to the Constellation. Doesn't compromise cargo for vehicle storage. It's
Does
faster,
it have
more agile
stealth
than
mode?
and it can run with a smaller crew. So this is the captain's quarters, and then we'll go out and see a little bit more of the habitation deck, and then make our way to the cockpit. So this would be the social area that you can meet and eat and basically plan your next mission.
When do they say it would be released?
Did they say it was going to be released?
From here, we'll go to the cockpit. So here we're over Pyro 3. We've come here for a mission to acquire an artifact. And you'll be making your way down to a trading post. So wanted to just give you a quick overview, and then we can start talking about the planet.
Yeah, Pyro 3 is just a terrestrial planet. It has a very thin, breathable atmosphere, but it's still pretty inhospitable, very cold. As you can see, some of those lightning strikes in the clouds, but yeah, very, very pretty looking.
So this is the first time we're actually seeing clouds above a terrestrial planet. You know, we went through quite a few iterations of forms. What we ultimately ended upon was something that felt quite dramatic, still believable in terms of how the wind would have shaped them.
but yeah, like it's showcasing a lot of the more recent tech that came online. Also, what we're seeing here is like some kind of distant thunder strikes.
I haven't seen the outside.
What this is, it's kind of like a prelude to, you know, future weather features that will be coming on board, you know, and how this will tie into, you know, storms and ship handling, you know, due to the turbulence. And it's great seeing the, you know, the rain hit the canopy glass here, you know, when you go through these cloud banks. Also, as part of the process of shaping, one of the things we really wanted to do is create these kind of like these pockets in between the clouds. So you're in these cavities, so as you're flying through, you get a glimpse of the terrain beneath you. But, you know, it feels really quite exhilarating, you know, to fly through. Also, as well, like
it's the leaked ship. It's
showcasing a lot of the more recent.
Exactly like
it's not got the fins at the front.
You know, it's
I see what you mean.
Similar.
Had like a whale tail
so
at the end.
It's way more performant than previously it was. Also, like the level of artifacting that we're seeing here is substantially reduced, certainly on higher spec machines.
It also gives you a great sense of parallax when you fly through these cloud sandwiches.
A cloud sandwich?
Yes. That's what it feels like. It feels like you're the meat or the cheese of a cloud sandwich.
The cheese of a cloud sandwich. So as we get out of the cheese, another really big feature that was important for me was, you know, terrain shadowing and terrain occlusion from the clouds. So you're actually seeing, you know, these large areas of occlusion cast onto the terrain. And it just adds that depth. It just adds that believability to what we're seeing in the frame. And, you know, when you see like these dark overcast clouds and they're hovering above the mountains, it finally completes the frame.
Land?
Especially when you see these distant rumbles of thunder in the distance.
Landing gear.
So James Cameron, who's doing the run through, yes, that is his name. He will be taking us down to the outpost. The goal for us is to basically make 50 of these, whether they're inhabited or derelicts or even basically inhabited by a farmer or inhabited by a gang. So the goal is to have these act as different factions, and so that you can develop different rep associated with them, and you can start seeing how big these outposts stretch to with the comms tower that's behind us, and then even some of the AA turrets that you'll actually see up close and personal.
There you go, that's how it lands.
I now understand how it lands.
That was a really good approach from James there. Good landing. That was a good solid 3 out of 10.
3 out of 10, jeez.
3 out of 10.
Ian's a tough grader.
Yeah, I'd go 6 at least.
This guy's got interesting haircut.
No one's ever got a 6.
7 out of 10 with Rice.
Gotta watch me land, man.
So here we'll go down to the technical deck.
I'm having sushi later, for sure.
So show off the cargo area.
So the shadow of his hair looked interesting.
The climate-controlled component areas, and then onto the gravity generator room and the stairway out. So you'll be able to learn more about the ship in one of the later panels that we have with Ben, Paul, and John. I think the team did a great job on this. I think this is one of my favorite skins. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a new skin, just something that felt a lot more, suitable for Pyro. But you can see how it feels suitably worn and weathered, to fit into these climates. And what we're seeing here is first boots on the ground, on Pyro. I think it looks great, especially in contrast to what we're seeing here is like actual AI on the terrain, you know, walking about, going about their business. And is that an AA turret there?
It is. And radio comms towers and all these other elements that we want to make sure that are interactive for the player and allows them to go and explore or use as
NPCs on the ground,
to their advantage.
AA defenses.
We want them to be able to interact with these different items.
All super important.
Here you can see like various outpost modules, you know, to the right there, we've got the garage unit. You can see the infrastructure on the roof. But this large, beautiful, you know, archway here kind of signifies, you know, the main entrance, the primary entrance to the main social module. I think the air looks look great. You know, fits in with the art style beautifully.
Was a sneak peek at the Pyro.
The team did a great job
a while ago.
And then we've seen the concept art previously in the day, and then, you know, here you can see it translated in game. And I think it absolutely looks fantastic. You know, the radial forms, you know, is quite special to this art style. And you can see how that complements these.
Don't know what it is, but I want what he's cooking.
Into other areas of the outpost.
So with the AI, we want to make sure that it's living, it's breathing. If you look back a little bit, there was a chef actually cooking. There's security guards here to make sure that they're actually protecting their investments, protecting their home from strangers. And then, but you have good rep with them. And so they allow you to kind of enter into certain areas that the other players wouldn't be able to enter into.
We also got a quick shot at the loadout that James is playing. So it's a female loadout, but it's also showing the backpack, which is new. Also some of the new hair as well, which is rendering much nicer.
So here the player will make their way out to the training post.
Yeah, the hair
go see the dealer, acquire the artifacts.
And for the trading post, you know, we wanted to get all of the junk on the outside as well, you know, so the player can see it as they're approaching. We wanted, you know, as many tops as we could, and you can see it's using the new soft deck shader, so these are reacting to the planetary wind, you know, the same force that the tall grass and the moss on the ground is reacting to as well.
The other thing with the trading post is, like Ian spoke about before, the inventory and what they'll be able to actually sell here will vary depending on where they're at in the solar system. Are they close to a jump point where they might be coming down and using this as a chop shop, or are they in a very rural area that's, you know, they care more about the frontier lifestyle and being able to survive versus money.
We passed the kitchen as well on the way back there. That's the local diner for this outpost. Tough crowd. Also, so in the inside as well, you know, we wanted this.
I like all the spices.
You know, kaleidoscope of colors and shapes. You know, like it's just literally the dealers displaying all the wares, everything they'll have outside in the open here.
Welcome. Take a look. I'm sure I have what you want, and if not, I'll have something just as good.
$5 million?
Oh yeah, very good choice. Very good.
So after 5 million credits of disposable income, we get our first look at the Hadesian artifact, which is obviously going to be what is sort of a super rare thing that you'll hopefully be able to start finding in the galaxy, which is sort of, if you're familiar with the lore of Hades, was an old civilization that destroyed itself. So somehow this trader has gotten their hands on this artifact.
So here we're showing one way of actually playing through this area. It really depends on your standings within the gang and how they want to deal with you. And then what's the dealer going to do? What's the dealer going to charge you? And from there, we have different ways of actually showing this, and we can look at option 2 now. So here we're going to run it back a little bit and show off a different way of entering into the trading post. This is a little bit more straightforward versus in demo 1 we took a side route through the social area.
So yeah, this is just some additional warehouse space that the trading post would have, and you can see it will lead directly onto this courtyard. And for the keen-eyed people, you'd see that the barbecue's still not being eaten yet.
The grill master would be fired.
Yeah. Still full of wieners.
Full of wieners.
He said
so with
wiener.
this area again, we just want to make sure that it's filled out with items, filled out with different things that you can interact with and possibly buy. It's like Dave said in the beginning, we want the stores to feel different here, but it's still making it feel believable.
Quick reference to some additional traversal areas there on the right when we came in.
Well, welcome. Take a look. I'm sure I have what you want, and if not, I'll have something just as good.
Yeah. The guys had a lot of fun dressing these areas. There's a lot of storytelling going into it.
I do like how he's literally got that artifact just sitting there on the side. Mm-hmm. No security.
And we don't mind losing reputation with the faction, and decide that we're going to take the artifacts through betrayal.
Just take it. Straight into the backpack.
So here we've got different routes for the players to enjoy and to use to flank and also navigate around. So each area will have different secondary and tertiary routes of navigation. James was really just trying to scare him there versus actually kill him.
That was intentional. Good shot, James.
You could also, if you notice real quick, there was the civilians are actually cowering as opposed to fighting, which is kind of, you'll see another coming up. But it's super cool.
So again, here the player will have the choice, do they actually want to interact with the civilians, or, does their conscience get better of them?
I think James made the right choice there.
He was nice, yeah.
One of the things when we was playtesting this a lot
is nice.
When you see the enemy AI kind of fanning out across the terrain like that, it's fantastic to see. It feels really great. Just seeing the base start to wake up to you and as you're trying to exfiltrate.
I like the fact he's serpentining.
I know it's under combat stress, but that yellow grass just looks fantastic.
At least when we miss shots, we can just go, oh yeah,
That's how I play.
We're a pro Star Citizen.
So here, James just wants
I don't
to
miss
get out real
shots.
quick.
You're not pro then, Zin. I miss all mine. Was the anti-air going to shoot him?
So as we slightly hinted to in the first walkthrough, this is where the AA turrets will come alive, and basically, if you're not fast enough, as James isn't, with your countermeasures, then they'll take you down.
Oh.
So what we saw there was the player went in, and based off their actions, the faction changed against them, and then basically became very aggressive. So in this last playthrough, what we'll show you is if the faction is already against you from the very beginning, and what are different ways that you can go about it. So here we are in our last walkthrough. Since you're all by yourself, we wanted to show the player take a stealthy routes versus if you were with friends, you could go in guns blazing. But this allows the player to come in, access the outpost from a different side than what we've shown. It also allows them to clock all the AI and see how they want to approach the problem and see what other secondary or tertiary routes would be open to them, either via the ladder or maybe a possible door.
Good night. That was a great shot. Also, one thing we did as well, as Todd said, we changed the time of day. The wind is slightly stronger, so you'll see the gorgeous yellow grass blowing just a little bit more intense than before. Also, what we're seeing here is like something to imply at the frontier living. Maybe they're growing crops or vegetables out here, but it also gives a kind of like a soft cover approach to the perimeter of the base. Nice.
I love the little grow areas. I love the little farms.
Also, with it being a different time of day, this allows us to show off the AI having their 24-hour schedules so that they can be in different areas when you approach it. So if you approach it at night or you approach it during the morning, they'll be doing different things, whatever is valid for their schedule.
That door's locked, so there's no going through that way. But what James does actually see here as he's scouting out the next AI is, just checking the roofline. But as I said previously, we wanted as many kind of like views in to the base as possible. Just so the player can continue to keep context of what's inside.
But also when you're inside, it allows the player to have context of where they're at within the actual outpost. And that was a great shot.
The AI fell beautifully on the already called out beautiful yellow grass and moss. Also, as James is looking back, what he's doing is actually making a mental map of possible routes, possible advanced traversal routes on top of the outpost. And we saw the dealer there in the bedroom, just end of the day.
So with each outpost, there'll be different routes that will be open to the player or closed to the player. So some of them might have ladders on the outside, some of them might not. Some of them might have basically ways to get in through the floorboards, other ones won't. But this is just one version of, many possibilities. So here, the player will take a secondary route of navigation all the way up to the roof, and then from here, this allows them to be able to check out any of the AI, also be able to look at any of the interactables in the future. If you got a good reputation, maybe you need to go and fix different items on the roof, or if you are there for
much more
nefarious means, then maybe you want to take out the power, and which will then kill the AA turrets, or will turn off the lights in the outpost. So it allows the player to interact with different items and then basically create a nice little sandbox for them to play in. So here you can see one of those interactables as well as the AI.
And just behind these interactables, like we're seeing these kind of archways. Like right now, there's these are just kind of empty, and to just illustrate like a guard point. in the future, these could be maybe customizable, or they could contain like an AA turret like we saw on demo 1, or it could contain like cargo storage. Basically, we tried to design something that was as flexible as possible.
So here we're showing off the looting system as well as the inventory system. So
is he going to steal his outfit?
Shipping in 315. This allows bodies to be able to be interacted with and take off the items associated with it. Also, with this change, you will no longer have global inventory, so you can't be pulling off weapons that you didn't take with you to this location. Everything will be regarding what you carry is what you have, and so it really makes the players think about how they want to approach the problem, and then also encourages them to look around and see if the designers have placed different things that they can interact with or use to help get past a certain route or a certain way that they maybe didn't bring with them.
And we'll also be including the, I believe in 315, the Knickknacks app for your Mobiglass. So now that you aren't carrying everything on your body and it's not sort of universal inventory, you'll be able to consult this app to see kind of where stuff is being stored and keep it better organized and stuff like that.
So here, this allows the player to have a quick little puzzle, but just gives them a little bit more interaction, and then allows them to go on to what I would consider a tertiary route, versus climbing up the ladder and possibly having to deal with the AI or them being spotted by them. Also, I think the team did a great job on the planet, as well as the outpost. These are really fun to play and sneak around in, and allows for many possible ways of attacking the same problem.
What we're seeing here is like James is actually getting up onto through one of these like rooftop storage modules, and it's given like the highest point in the base. So from here, you can actually make probably the most informed decisions on how to approach the next problem. We're seeing this guard routine here, and then ultimately throwing an item to distract the guard.
Allows them to go and access new areas. It's a behavior that we're still working out, but at least we're seeing like the first iterations and be able to continue to optimize it, as well as make sure that the behavior is working properly.
So we just saw that for the first time. It's like the first rooftop airlock hatch. So previously, route in and out, if the outside wasn't pressurized, we wouldn't have this option. But now through that rooftop airlock, you can cycle and then infiltrate through the roof. And also what we're seeing here is
I love that.
Potentially scouting out an advanced traversal up into the rafters, getting on top of some infrastructure, and
couldn't we just
getting
drop
like
the bomb
overview as we go into the garage module.
Ooh, three things.
So here, this is placeholder, but it gives you an idea of, we want to have different interactables, different loot boxes laid out around the location. So if the players explore, they'll be rewarded. We want to encourage them looking in every nook and cranny and enjoying, what the outpost has for them.
And one of the things that's interesting is these garages won't be vehicle spawn points, so it's not like a big kind of like pad in the middle, but it's more like, if you want to have your vehicle there, you got to drive it in and park it. So here you can see a variety of vehicles just laid out how the player would have just parked them just gives a much more believable and realistic design.
So again, we're just encouraging different navigation, different routes for the player to go and see. Over to the left, back there, there was a possible way of going into the floorboards or going underneath the outpost. Again, those will be opened up or closed off based off of, you know, just how we want to build the outpost. Not every one will be built the same. Our philosophy for these are to make sure that each one of them feels unique, and this is just one way of us.
This is my kind of stealth sim.
Us customizing it and making each
I didn't
one
see any
feel,
grenades.
Different.
Stealth grenades.
And so the player won't always be used to the same routes. So here, again, we're using the inventory system. We allow the players to go in, and if you take out a certain AI, they might have different tools or different notes or different items that you'll need in order to solve your mission.
Interestingly, when we was designing these spaces, we knew we wanted these internal airlocks, but we knew we needed some sort of like view, like porthole on them, just so before you commit through, before you cycle, you know, you can just double check to see if there's any bad guys on the other side.
So we got some ragdoll bugs. I guess it wouldn't be a CitizenCon without any sort of issues or bugs.
So here, like previously the players being, you know, on the roof, they've come down through the main section of the outpost. But here what the player's doing is they're going to the underfloor section. So these are vents, but they're more like subfloors. So they're meant to feel very dark, very minimal, but you're actually seeing the foundations of these outposts. So inside here, it's the player will need to kind of work out how to navigate through them. It's very much like a torch-based experience. You know, and then within here, what the player can actually do is work out roughly where they are in relation to the to what's upstairs. And what you're seeing here, like this light bleeding down through, you know, you can kind of make informed decisions. Or okay, that's where that AI was, or right now the player is just underneath that main social space. So if you think back, like that was that guard in the beginning, just next to the kitchen counter. But you know, we've intentionally made these spaces
pretty good
not necessarily like very easy to navigate, because you know there wouldn't be a lot of light down here. You know, the player would have to, you know, follow, for example, like James is following the blue wire here. You know, making a decision to like, hey, if I follow that blue wire, I'm probably going to get to something interesting or a point where I can actually, you know, exit this subfloor space and get back up above.
And what I like about them is basically just the claustrophobic feel of it, and then obviously the addition of possible secondary or more advanced navigation. So either going into prone or just going full crouch.
I'm assuming he's in the drop area now.
So here we come out. In the bathroom space that's on the other side of the garage, so we're on the opposite side of the outpost from where we just were.
I think they need to probably not have it yet, but adding a like a cuff
in the shower,
restrain.
Yeah. Hog tie.
So here, this is just a different wrapper on a loot box. In this case, it's a hamper, and so the player will be able to really change outfits and adjust the way that they look so that they can walk around the outpost and not be noticed. There will be kind of a certain time limit associated with it. We still need to work out the details on how all that will work, but the goal is to give them a little bit of leeway, and so if you look the part, maybe you're not scrutinized as much, and the AI won't notice you as quickly.
So here we can see back into the social space, but this time on the other side. And then this door will lead directly into the habitation room that we saw previously on the outside.
Speaking of fun ragdoll physics.
That was a great one.
So here, the player decided to take the dealer out instead of actually figuring out how they could open up the safe. So they're going to have to look around the room. They're going to have to interact with the body and possibly see, you know, is there a way for them to actually open it? In other cases, maybe the safe will be hackable in the future, and in some cases it won't be, and then you'll need to figure out a different way of actually opening it.
So here we spot a little clue, a little note, and you'll notice the what's fun is like the name on here. If you look back and see the some of the AI we've been taken out, you may notice some names. So here's the clue for the player. But one of the coolest things for me here is the player is holding an item with the clue, and while holding the item, they can seamlessly interact with another item to solve a puzzle. That's awesome.
And then here we got a little bug. The player was able to acquire the artifact, and then we'll be able to do whatever they want with it, either sell it or be able to use it somehow in a future mission.
One of the things that was really exciting about watching this kind of back to back is finally getting to see that freedom of choice. And it's like, it's really, really, I mean, again,
that was reasonably good. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing it in three different ways.
Like, having that sort of striking that balance
seeing tangible
between,
gameplay.
You know, this sort of well thought out social space and construction of these locations, but also an equally effective stealth and combat thing. It's super cool to see.
I think I wanted to see
seeing the demo used on the turrets, you know, 3 different ways. It was a huge team effort. So everyone that worked on the project, on this part of what we wanted to show, we want to say a big thank you, you know, a big shout out, because, you know, we're just presenting it. It's the people that did a lot of the hard work that should be represented. And speaking of people doing hard work, now is a good chance to throw it over to Eddie and Joel, and they're going to tell you a little bit more about the how we built that outpost that we just saw.
I'm Eddie Hilditch. I'm a senior lead, and myself and my team have been working on the new colonialism outposts.
My name's Joel Azzopardi, and I'm senior environment artist too for the EU Sandbox team.
So after the initial concept is done and rounds of feedback have been iterated on, we move into pre-production. This phase allows us to spend some time testing the concepts for in-game viability. Translation from concept to game isn't always one-to-one, and during pre-production, we'll get rough versions of the concept meshes into game and spend time making sure that they'll work practically. The art direction can also change at this stage, so we use this phase to kind of explore creatively as well, and concept art is a fantastic jumping-off point for sparking ideas.
One of the first steps when starting a new location is to start look development. A hyper-focused small section of the location where we can hone in the tools and methods needed to execute the concept in-game. Some things translate well, some things don't. It's important to figure all this out before going full steam ahead with the entire team. One of the great assets on the Sandbox team is we have a lot of people who are passionate about concept and design, which means when translating from concept to production environment, it's very easy to expand on the concept art. With the art styles of the Colonial Outpost, we decided to change up the way we typically author content. Our hard surface locations are meant to feel prefabricated, like there's a manufacturing plant out there on ArtCorp that churns out these flat pack space station kits, so stations can be mass produced. Colonial Outposts are more personal, more handcrafted by the people who live there, based on their needs, not wants. They're on the frontier world, so they can't always choose luxury over practicality. Materials were one of the first things we tackled, and we started off by developing the idea of how the inhabitants would have built these structures and what materials they would use. We wanted to show not only the age of the outpost, but also wanted to hint at all those different layers of the structure and give you an idea how, functionally, they constructed them.
One of the biggest challenges with the new outposts is how we introduce variation between each location the player will visit. Building each as a bespoke set of buildings is impossible, as we want hundreds, if not thousands, of outposts in the game eventually. The modular approach we've developed really evolved out of our previous work on space station interiors, but with a few key improvements. This starts at the macro level, where on the planet's outposts are placed, how the local conditions affect your time there, then what kind of buildings an outpost has and how they're laid out, all the way down to the ability to independently swap out an underfloor layout in a single building of that outpost. We'll have various types of modules, from large standalone modules like warehouses or ore extractors, which have a singular function, all the way down to smaller room modules that can be connected together in different ways to form a complete headquarters building. After pre-production was finished, we had a list of the room module types that we wanted to tackle first. For the headquarters building, everything hinges around a hub module with different room modules that can be attached to extend the structure. The room modules will serve different functions in the base, with various gameplay systems linking one to another for an interconnected web of sandbox gameplay opportunities. As content creators for the Outpost, we needed a new system to build, edit, and manage the library of modules we're creating. Rastar is the tool we'll use to do this. It allows us to intuitively create a location template directly on the surface of the planet. Not only this, but headquarter buildings can be snapped together directly within the tool, or with an intuitive user interface. One of the other major innovations with the Planet Tech has been the ability to modify the terrain mesh and flatten areas of terrain. Previously, we were at the mercy of the terrain when it came to designing our buildings, which is why our outposts had to be built with stilts and placed in naturally flat areas of the planet. Now, we can build much more natural buildings with walls and entrances connected directly to the planet's surface. And also, we can place these buildings in a much wider range of locations. We believe our new outposts inject a refreshing new location experience into Star Citizen. They're organic, warm, personal spaces that really convey the age and history of humanity's expansion into the verse. The new art style, the focus from design on gameplay, and the flexible modular approach to their construction will allow us as developers and you as players be part of creating a wider variety of rich and satisfying experiences for every outpost the player comes across.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Joel. That was awesome. And moving on, we're actually going to talk to Corey now, who is going to give us kind of a deep dive into the creation of the artifact, which is actually kind of our first little glimpse of the Hadesian culture from Hades system.
Thanks, guys. I'm Corey Bamford, lead props artist at Cloud Imperium Games. I'm here today specifically to talk about the Hadesian artifact that you'll see in the walkthrough. So we knew early on we wanted some sort of MacGuffin for the walkthrough. We originally had a few ideas of what that could be. Originally, it was either going to be a tablet fragment, a sculpture, or a Hadesian artifact. So initially, the concept team explored a variety of ideas. We used a lot of reference for existing alien artifacts in the game, as well as reference from the real world. You know, lots of tomes and ancient kind of Egyptian stuff as well, just all sorts of really reference just to get a general idea. We knew we wanted to integrate some form of ancient power or technology into the asset. We also knew we wanted it to have some sort of symbolism and text. So once the concept team iterated further on these ideas, they then presented those back to Chris, and we narrowed down the selection of assets until we had a candidate that everyone was happy with. So once we had this asset in mind, it then came down to turning that from a concept into a production asset, and that's where the props team comes in. When a prop artist gets a concept like this, immediately the wheels in their head start turning, and they're trying to figure out the best way to implement it in our game engine. They need to find solutions within the engine to achieve the visual target of the concept. Obviously, it's not as simple as just taking the concept and replicating it. We have to think about the shaders, we have to think about performance. Our job really is to find a solution within the game engine to achieve the visual target of the concept. Once we've figured out a strategy for achieving the look, we begin to actually make the content. So for the artifact, for example, we knew that it needed to be split into 3 segments and they needed to fit together. The first thing we do is get a placeholder into the game for the design team to actually implement as an entity. We also then figure out how the scale actually works in the player's hand and when they inspect it. For the artifact, there was a bit of back and forth between the size because we wanted to get a balance between it having prominence and also being easily carryable. After we figured out the size of the asset, we then need to actually break down how we're going to make it. So the first thing we really get into is the materials. We know that this asset is made of a few different materials. Firstly, we have the stone with the complicated glowing pattern. We also have these large copper structures and some smaller, thinner metal structures as well. For this asset, we knew we'd need to use unique textures just because of the amount of detail we wanted to achieve. One of the biggest challenges we had was making sure that the stone looked really good. To create the stone, we started with some scan data of rocks and concrete, as well as some mesh data like curvature. We also used a lot of procedural noises from Substance Designer just to add some variety. Using the height map as a jumping off point for the rest of the texture maps is quite a nice logical and physicalized way of doing things. It took quite a lot of iteration to get the final look. It was definitely a group effort. The glow was probably the trickiest part of this asset. We ended up actually using a shader some of you might remember from the Vandal Driller trailer. We created the iconography using a bespoke texture mask, and then the circles were derived from some cells within Substance Designer. We took these cells, quantized them, and then got the edges of that quantization to create rings. And then we used a procedural mask as well as some hand-painted textures to mask out that glow. Once we were happy with this texture, we multiplied that onto the height map, which is used to drive the glow threshold. The glow effect has 3 texture inputs that we need to create. There's an animated glow map, which is sort of used to drive the background effect of the glow. There's also a gradient, which colors that map. Finally, we have the actual pulse itself, which is the texture map that pulses across the asset. Next up is the bronze. This was actually pretty straightforward to achieve. We didn't need any fancy shader effects for this one, just a standard set of unique textures. We wanted to get lots of nice scratches and aging on the bronze. And in the concept, there was also this nice effect on the edges where the metal got darker. So we wanted to add that in as well, just to give it a more distinctive feel. Once we were happy with the visual look of the asset and engine, it then was just a case of wrapping it up. We needed to create LOD meshes for the object, as well as collision proxies. As you can tell, quite a lot of work goes into these hero assets. So that was a little bit of exploration into how we created the Hadessian artifact for the walkthrough. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me talk about it, and enjoy the rest of the show.
So we wanted to thank you for your time. We wanted to introduce Pyro and show all the hard work that all the team's been working on and working towards. The team has put in a lot of hard work in building the Pyro system, building the AI, building the planets, the worlds that you'll go and explore. So Pyro will be ready when server meshing is, and it will be coming out with Star Citizen Alpha 4.0. So on behalf of myself, I want to thank Dave and Ian and yourselves for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the panel, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Digital Citizen Con. See you in the verse.
Hurry. Don't know if this is copyrighted music or not. Just turn it down. Let's turn it down a bit. Comment on it. Like, oh, it's easy party. And it's... So... I won't be 45 minutes. What are you talking about? This is the same sizzle rule as earlier. I'm going to close it just in case. Quite possible that right music. Was relatively impressed with little Pyro demo they showed, little mission demo. It had the elements of what I wanted. At the very least, that 400i. Yep. Had new location, mission. Showed tangible gameplay associated with that mission, and none of it looks too far away. I'm back, by the way, now.
Yeah, I've been watching you. Sorry, me and DC have been dissing your whole...
What? Rephrase that slightly?
Nope.
Okay.
The void in your head.
Oh.
Is that better?
Step out.
Credits burning a hole in your pocket? Didn't think so. Something tells me, though, you got a pile of junk in that hangar of yours. Turn that crap into scrap at Dumper's Depot.
Oh, I like this.
Old Zeke always pays top cred for all your used gear at any of my Verse famous franchise locations. From Art Corp to Crusader. Stop on by and tell them Zeke sent you.
Like
thrusters to mining lasers, power plants to shield generators.
Who the fuck is Zeke?
We got your back. Dumpers Depot, because everything is valuable to someone. Dumpers Depot LLC is not responsible for inaccurate appraisals. Commercial service and delivery fees will apply.
They're just pain showing some of these ads now. Cool.
Space is cold and unforgiving. Only the toughest survive here. But even the toughest outlaw has a sensitive side. He doesn't have to show it to everyone. Because with your very own Moby Horizon, you have peace, freedom, relaxation, and your very private emotional retreat always with you. Welcome to your very own Moby Horizon. The use of Moby Horizon can be addictive. If in doubt, consult a licensed physician.
He could do cat face.
He could do cat face.
A distress beacon is triggered, and a quick reactionary force from Elite Expeditionary is mobilized.
Roger, boss. Albatross flight, prepare for drop. 1 minute out.
Loadmaster copies. Dropping the ramp.
Utilizing state-of-the-art technology, highly trained professionals arrive within moments.
Albatross flight, 30 seconds.
Every team, power up. Rolling on 3.
What do you think?
Prepare to deliver justice in even the most remote reaches of the verse.
Execute, execute, execute.
Okay, every team is rolling.
Then what do you think?
Last man, every team down and safe.
Roger, last man.
That's pretty good.
Albatross breaking up.
It got a bit boring with the sneaky one, but I wouldn't do it that way. I would want to be a nice person.
Yeah.
And then maybe shoot them and steal it.
Well, maybe steal it without killing anyone? I would not want to be thrown out of a ship in the tank.
Are you sure?
Well,
what if it had a little parachute?
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. I love it. Perfect.
Yes! Yes!
Here at Kelto, we have one simple goal: to bring you the items you need quickly and easily. We've got everything you need: food, drinks, toys for the little ones, guns for the wife, all inside one store, Kelto. Just walk inside to begin your astronomical savings. Using the latest in Moby technology and machine learning, we know exactly what you've picked up and have already charged you. Want something hot and ready to go? How about hot dogs, nachos, or burritos? Kelto. We've even got the latest in Gemini ballistic weapons, like the Gemini F55 LMG, featuring an explosive rate of fire that tops over 1,000 rounds per minute. It's the best light machine gun you can get in a convenience store. Looking for something a bit smaller for the kids? We also carry the Gemini LH86 pistol, perfect for those small hands. So come down to Kelto today for quality products at low prices. That is my most proudest video.
Come to Kelto.
I feel honoured. I feel honoured that we've got Jared after us.
Welcome to CitizenCon 2951. Our yearly celebration of everything Star Citizen is, and showcase of what Star Citizen is on its way to become. As usual, I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. So, what is CitizenCon? When it started in 2013, it may have had its humble roots in Sandy just wanting some place to bring folks together, and a solid excuse for Ben and Pete to watch the Wing Commander movie in a theater in Austin, Texas. But as with all things Star Citizen, it grew each year to become a full day of activities, most recently held in Manchester, England in 2019. Now, with a hiatus in 2020 due to the pandemic and our desire to remain diligent and responsible in 2021, CitizenCon is back as something slightly different this year. Now, while it won't be the same without seeing all of you in person, and worrying if your plastic bag helmet is safe or not, we hope this year's event brings with it a similar sense of community and interaction as our developers present to you their continuing efforts in bringing Star Citizen's future to the present. And let's talk about some of that future we just saw with a look we just took at the Pyro system. Now, I've always said it, and I'll continue to always say it, we get better with every one of these things we do, whether that's planets, spaceships, or anything else in between. And with the Pyro presentation, we got our first true look at some of the new planets and moons, the process of converting our existing space stations into new outlaw variants, taking those colonial outposts that we've been seeing before from concept to amazingly detailed reality, and perhaps most excitedly, planetary AI nav mesh in action with a 24-hour day-night cycle that will truly bring these worlds to life and provide that universe of gameplay possibilities seen in those multiple different ways you can go about achieving your objectives. And for those of you who were wondering, yes, that was really Pyro 3, that was a real outpost and a real mission. No sandworms here. That's what's coming to Star Citizen.
We want the sandworm.
And a whole lot more.
We want the sandworm.
Now, because I'm the patron saint of bad ideas, let's take a look at some of the comments that came in on Twitch while we were all watching. This should be good. Engion says, using talent from across the globe, that's a good thing. I agree. Adderdoth says, this guy is talking like it's been made. DFX2KX says, they probably have the gameplay, but they want to force folks to stick around and watch the whole thing before they show it. Annoying, but typical for them. We are who we are. We showcase every part of the Star Citizen. Rolana says, someone needs to hand out some meds in chat. Underfern says, I wouldn't buy a melty dog from that man. I don't know if they're talking about Todd Pappy or Ian Leyland, but agreed. Lots of people said, 420 Space Weed, Vape Nation, damp, dank. Gaming Fortis says, just remember, he's more scared of you than you are of him. That's the truth.
Oh my god.
And then everyone went on a claim spree for a while. James Cameron, yes, the real James Cameron, he does exist. And then finally, Shorty Mac said, number 15, Burger King foot lettuce. The last thing you'd want in your Burger King burger is someone's foot fungus, but as it turns out, that might be what you get. Wise words, always. You can always rely on the Twitch community. And speaking of community, you may have noticed a selection of community-created videos throughout the day, ranging from commercials to skits to a variety of things in between. Those are all here as part of an effort by our fantastic community team that started months ago to include as many of you in today's festivities as possible. And while we can't show every single one that was sent in, the team did expand their original idea of just 15 videos to a whopping 42 for today's show. So you're going to see a few more as the day progresses. Now, of course, CitizenCon wouldn't be CitizenCon without the swag. Check that out, huh? Yeah. And this year, we've got it coming in two shapes and sizes. First up is the digital goodies pack seen here, which comes with the newly minted Arden SL Balefire suit you may have seen recently on Inside Star Citizen with that slick Theta Geo helmet. It's got the matching Balefire combat knife because accessorizing is always important, and the classic CitizenCon 2951 trophy, which I'm still trying to convince Actor Feature Team to turn into a bludgeoning weapon. Just say Red 1 one more time, people. Now, these will all be distributed Monday to all backers. So if you've been on the fence so far and decide to back the project today, you'll get it along with everybody else on Monday. Now, over in Meat Space, since we can't do the traditional swag bag that's included for attendees with their ticket, we're doing a swag box that you can purchase on the RSI store. For the collectors out there, it's got 3 brand new Star Citizen pins to add to the collection, as well as an individually numbered challenge coin.
I will buy any
there
pins
are many
they make.
like it, but this one is yours. Now, both collector's items come in a neat box and bundled with stickers that you can place all over the place, like Steve Bender's desk. I know, because I
400 eyes on the website.
Now, the swag bag made box is available now on the robertsspaceindustries.com website. And we've also got some contests and giveaways going throughout the day, starting with this Astro Gaming headset contest, where folks hosting their own CitizenCon watch parties have an opportunity to submit images on Twitter or Instagram with the hashtag SCWatchParty to win a custom-painted Xenothreat headset seen here. Whether your party is at home or at work, or if you're Captain Richard in his car. And for those of you who don't do social media, we're also giving away some Tobii eye trackers on Spectrum today in a short story contest. So tell us about some incredible moments you've had in person with your fellow citizens and win a Tobii eye tracker. Check that out on Spectrum for your chance to win. And no, I don't have one of those to show you because, as somebody said, I don't give things back. Now, let's talk about the day's activities. We just completed our Life in the Verse, or Life in Pyro presentation. Up next, we've got Ship Talk, where you'll learn about the latest and greatest in spacecraft coming to Star Citizen. Then we got Gen 12 and the multi-core Vulcan, where we'll take you through some of the new technologies that will unlock Star Citizen's ultimate performance potential. Crafting Worlds, which offers a brief look at some of the new tools that make up those wonderful pyro planets we just saw. Server meshing and the state of persistence, which will give you an inside look at the process of expanding Star Citizen out to the breadth and scope we all want it to reach. The Sounds of Space, which for my money is the sleeper presentation of the day. Don't miss out. It looks at the new tools that will unleash our sound designers from the constraints of yesterday's outdated processes. And then finally, Systemic Gameplay and the Stream of Thought. An entirely silent presentation where Tony beams his brainwaves directly into your skull through the TV, provided, of course, you have your SGS brainwave amplitude receiver. You all have your SGS brainwave amplitude receiver, don't you? We'll figure it out later. Basically, it's a big, long day of Star Citizen presentations and infos. That Pyro presentation alone was like an entire season of ISC just crammed into a single day. Which makes me think, can I take the rest of this quarter off? I can. I cannot. I cannot. All right. Well, if you end up missing any part of the show or just want to watch it again, each presentation will be going up on YouTube later today in glorious 4K. But fair warning, do not look directly into Todd Pappy's eyes in 4K. Or Corey Bamford's. They're mesmerizing.
Din.
Yes. And that about does it for the housekeeping. It's time to throw it to our next presentation of the day.
Videos that have just
Ship Talk with Paul Jones, John Drew, and Ben Curtis. Where they'll be discussing a ship you know, a ship you don't know, and a ship you weren't supposed to know, but you ended up knowing. It's not invisible any longer.
Here's Three! It was the 404 that was invisible. Din.
Through unforgiving lands.
Yes. Yes.
Across the impossible expanse.
Oh, I'm liking this video. Grab those videos and start to put together the gameplay footage from the 2-hour one. Just the gameplay footage at the end.
We chase what most consider myth.
So it's the 400i trailer we're seeing now.
Pursue an obsession. That's what pushes us to greatness. The Oasis. It's real. The 400i by Origin Jumpworks.
It's real! That should be... Oh. $220 war bond, the 400i.
Oh, that's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, it's awesome.
So we made the 404 in the end.
It was
a ruse all along. It was a real ship. So,
we'll go through at least some of ship talk, and then we're going to call it.
Those trailers are always super cool to see the artwork from both your teams.
Really good job of kind of showing off what I think everyone's kind of done.
Yeah. Right. So we should probably get on with the show. This is Ship Talk, where we are going to talk about a variety of things today. My name's John Crew. I'm the Vehicle Director here at CIG.
I'm Ben Curtis, and I'm the Vehicle Art Director at CIG.
And I'm Paul Jones, Art Director.
Give us the ships.
So the 400i, it's a Constellation competitor, and we've got a few of these ships in this category across the board. We have the Constellation, we have the Corsair, and now we have the 400i. And the 400i has a few interesting features that makes it a compelling choice over the others. So being an Origin ship, it's obviously very visually sleek and fast, but also it can carry cargo and a vehicle at the same time. Size-wise, there's obviously
42
a big
units of cargo,
gap in the
I think.
range. We have the 100 series at the start, it jumps up to the 300 series. Then there's the big jump to the 600 series, and then another jump to the 890. So finding a space for this was fairly easy, size-wise.
I think it fills the gap quite nicely. So in terms of the process, normally what happens is we assign it to one concept artist, and we start the ball rolling. So it's really just a game of sort of exploration at this point. It's fast and loose. We always have a timeline for each concept, and so it's the pressure is always on. Basically, it doesn't matter how many ships we've done. There's always that pressure to get it done and hit the sort of key points. And so at this point of exploration, it's really sort of loosey-goosey in terms of figuring out ideas, looking at shapes, looking at silhouettes, and sort of not locking yourself into a line of thinking. It's basically, we'll look at different ships. So some will be more influenced by the 600i, some more by the 100i, and then we'll sort of do a mix and match. And so, like I said, sometimes you don't quite hit it on that sort of,
I think
like right at the beginning.
Yeah, when you've got like a well-established manufacturer, it's really beneficial because you kind of you have that to pull from, but you also don't want to get into the point where it's just a scaled down 600 or a scaled up. Do you know what I mean? You kind of like, you don't want them all just to look like they're the same ship, just slightly different variants.
Yeah.
So I think the 400 is it certainly stands out within the lineup, but it's clearly an Origin ship.
And I think because we sort of follow the sort of car manufacturers, don't we, in terms of the brand. It's sort of expanding the brand. Sort of the brand also develops over time. So we have like a double.
Yeah.
Since the start of the project, Origin has sort of slightly changed its style a little bit. And then, like say, you don't want just a mini 600.
Yeah.
Even though there's a part of me that would just be like, right, let's do a mini 600.
I do really like the 600. Yeah, the 600.
And even at this point, I kept sort of coming back to one original sketch that had been done for the, what was it? I think it was 100i. Yeah. There was a little thumbnail. It's literally, in my head, it's about that big. And the sketch is just teeny weeny. I was like, I kind of want a version like this. This looks kind of cool. And so basically, in the end, I just went in and kick-bashed some ideas together.
So this was before my time on the ship team, so it's quite interesting
really?
to learn a bit more about the process.
Yeah.
It's a great ship. It's my favourite one, Paul, in that case.
A lot of the little concept thumbnails if you see one, because we often show them in Jump Point magazines afterwards, after a ship's been released, you see all the early sketches, and people probably noticed that 100i thumbnail that we did that was rejected for the 100, but then has come around for this, and you never know what might happen with ones that we didn't choose for this one.
Yes,
could happen
yes,
in the
they
future.
might appear in future ships. So ultimately, this is what this is like a visual that I did. So it's it's throwing together a bunch of shapes, what we call kit bashing from different models, because it's quick. As an art director, you've always got. It feels like you've got zero time to get a result. So it's how do you get provide a visual that people can understand.
A lot of people are going to be happy that the 400i is real.
Shortest time possible. And so my understanding of the ship was it was a luxury
luxury explorer. And so you can see here that that's what
this is one of the concept pictures we saw.
And a deck.
The watchful area.
You know, the part of the process is that we show it to Chris Roberts to get sort of direction and feedback.
And Chris was quite adamant that this was going to be, you know, an explorer. It wasn't just a small scale party ship. It was, you know, it needed to have a function. It needed to be a competitor to that scale and kind of role of ship.
Yeah. You know, we did quite a lot of interior investigations and you know, just sort of looking at ways of arranging space within that ship, because like we said earlier, even though the ship looks big, it's actually really tight. It's a lot harder than you think to achieve everything that now Star Citizens expect to have in their ships, and all the components and all the functionality.
A very streamlined sort of 2 decks, or really like 1 deck that stretches most of the lower section and the upper bit, which had the pool in it.
Yes.
Maybe one day you'll get
the pool.
You'll get your pool one day.
So in terms of this process, what happens is we finish the concept, or what we think is finished, and then get Chris sign off, do a couple of paint schemes, and then it passes over to your department.
Yeah. So from the concept, normally we'll kind of take it as quickly as possible into the editor, and that just allows us to kind of really get a good sense of the space from the player, and making sure that everything that we think we need is actually going to fit, making sure the components go through. And like we were saying earlier, a lot of the time is what a ship starts off with its kind of paper design, its official design document, to the point where we're actually kind of working on the ship. The requirements can change. That might, that's not just because we're like, oh, we'll add this and add that to it. It's sometimes a balance pass has been done in the game, and we've realised that a certain ship item, a certain size shield might not be suitable for it anymore, or it might be just that we think, well, actually it'd be great if we could fit the X1 in it because it's kind of the perfect ship for it. But that wasn't, like I say, on the original plans. So I mean, like you were saying, the ship is kind of a hard split with its 2 floors. So
at the moment, I'm trying to work out if the ship has 16 or 32 missiles
and cargo and storage and everything downstairs still, and then the kind of the habs and the crew space is all upstairs with the bridge, obviously. Once we kind of get that white box in game, we then start just making sure that we can fit everything in we need. We also, that's the point that we kind of really start internally showing that ship to everyone that is invested in it, and including Chris and everyone that needs to kind of have a say. And one of the kind of things that Chris was really keen for, although he didn't want this ship to be a kind of luxury party ship, he did want it to feel Origin. I think originally we had like the lift entrance.
There was a smaller, trying not to do hand movements too much.
Yeah.
There was just a single small platform just for the crew that went straight up into
into that whole area was quite tricky, wasn't it? Because there was the docking ring, the docking collar, the lift, and then there was an entrance to the front and an entrance to the back.
Originally, I think on the concept, you walked in through the docking collar, and like you say, the floor was a lift. You had the collar on the side, and then
the
doors either side, which took you to like a little antechamber.
Let's head hole. That's how happy I am.
I think it was.
At the front,
and the first bit of feedback from Chris was the entrance doesn't really feel very grand for an Origin ship, and that's when we kind of introduced the stairs and the kind of like the big, not marble staircase, but that sort of idea that you were kind of like, walking into the ship felt a little bit more grand. That had some knock-ons to the kind of interior space as well, because obviously making a 1-person or 2-person,
it looks like it's got a bike bay for its vehicle.
It fits in a nice tight space, but when you've got a set of stairs that need to fit or need to have a decent height change, that requires a lot more space. So what we ended up doing was kind of opening up this first chamber you walk into, and rather than being divided into separate rooms, that kind of whole space kind of acts as the airlock, and that's got everything that you need when you first enter the ship. And I think it does, like I say, just that initial entrance feels quite nice now.
We don't have a lot of ships like that anymore that have the go up the front of it inside it.
I mean, we've got another one that we'll show after this.
But most of them, if they've got a ramp, it's like cargo, isn't it? It's pure function and not really.
No, I think you guys have done a great job on this, because it was it was tricky. You know, I remember it at the time, and you feel the time pressure.
And then it was when I was just starting on the team as well, so I was like coming in and be like, oh, Paul, what do we do? Like, where do we go?
But it also, I mean, it's also nice because it sort of dovetails with that original sketch, which has. There's an element there in that.
Oh, is there?
Okay. Yeah, and I think
I'm much happier now.
At the time, I sort of binned it off because I was just like, I don't like. I'm sure I had some thoughts about it. I mean, everybody knows I've got a sort of 64 kilobit memory, so stuff kind of like gets lost after a short amount of time. But I think
toilets each of the room. I think individually has toilets. I think.
Let's go simple. But yeah, you guys did good stuff.
Yeah, and then the next thing to tackle, like Paul was saying, was the kind of like the addition of the bike garage. It was a bit of a headache trying to kind of fit that in, and the original plan that you can see is originally we were going to have it at the back of the ship next to the cargo, or
right
within
at the back of the cargo.
Yeah, within the cargo room. It
Where
did
is it?
fit, but it kind of brought up a few quirks with it. I think there was a few different quirks from different departments. So from a design point of view, I think we could only make it fit if you sent the bike up on its own.
No, Davidson, thank you very much.
But
A
because
donation,
the main
appreciated.
entrance to the
Hype.
ship was at the front, it meant that you'd get off.
Yeah, to drive your bike onto this platform, get off your bike, send the bike up, run around to the front of the ship, run up the stairs.
Yeah, and the
then
stairs
just look at your bike.
Opening isn't exactly like a super quick thing. So if you, it just felt kind of like
in terms of flow.
Yeah, it's like, all right, I need to quickly get off planet, and you're like, oh, right, okay, yeah, send that up. Oh, run, yep, okay, go. A minute later or 2 minutes later, you're in the seat, ready to fly. Like I say, that was one of the issues we kind of hit, and then the other, I guess, issue was it started eating into the cargo space, so it meant that you couldn't, once you had the cargo fully loaded, there was very little space for you to kind of traverse around the cargo hold. Basically, we had a number of kind of ideas we played with, and then if you click on, we ended up
Thanks very much.
putting it at the opposite end of the ship.
Mr. Fett.
Now the
Spitz.
nose, should we call it the nose? Yeah, the nose now opens up, and it's got like a nice little kind of dedicated X1 garage in there. It's a nice use of that kind of spine that was there originally.
Yeah, there was nothing really.
The gravity drive was there, but we kind of nudged that back a bit. And I guess the mounts for the guns, but they kind of still tucked out to the side.
I'm trying to understand the shape of the ship and everything.
There's a better use of space because it was like you say, it had the gravity generator there and it had the suit lockers, but it was weird that you had to go through the airlock to get your suit and then back out. So taking up that space was much nicer. And the other really good thing is all the controls for getting a new ship and doing this. They're all right next to you. So you go, open this. Yeah. You can put your bike away.
Yeah.
And go up.
And I think that's one of the kind of like the nice things of it is you can, I guess, ride up to your ship and it's just there. You send it up straight up and there's no messing around. So that was one of the other challenges. And then to be honest, most of the rest of the ship kind of went pretty much to plan in terms of what was on concept. I don't think there was any kind of real surprises. So now as you enter the ship and you come into the kind of like the main body, you're into engineering. This ship does have large shields.
Yes. Yeah. So that was another thing to make it different. Obviously we've made changes during development to other ships and shields have changed, so it's not quite as unique as it was, but it's still very well shielded.
It'll be very tanky.
And the other cool thing about engineering is those rooms at the edge are cool.
Yeah,
they're climate controlled, so it's another nice little thing to play with. Gives all the teams something
we're going to have full dry ice and everything.
Full dry ice. Yeah, you can get the
come in and
the light sticks out and
flow out.
A little bit of party mode in there. Yeah, but I think that's it. That was one of the things I think you established early on in the concept was this kind of like cool chamber in engineering.
Yeah, because we needed that space. I mean, you need space to put all the components somewhere, and just thought, well, let's just turn it into a feature.
Yeah. So and it kind of fits with the Origin kind of family as well. I think.
That's good. That's good.
And then kind of from engineering, you kind of go straight to the back, and that's where you've got your storage. I don't know if you know the SDU size offhand, but
42.
Oh, not off the top of my head now.
No,
should probably put that in the notes.
Correct. Sorry. So you can fit a decent amount of storage in there. You've also got the escape pods. One of the other things we were doing when we were looking at this space with the bike is originally we were kind of, if we put the bike in this area, it meant that the storage reduced. So we were looking at kind of other ways of moving the storage around. At one point we thought, oh, we could put it out in the wings, but then that didn't really make sense because, you know, ideally in the wings where you store your fuel and that sort of stuff, and it just felt really awkward, whereas this kind of gives us the kind of classic, traditional...
Big block of cargo.
Yeah, big block of cargo.
You can get the vehicle, can't you?
Yes, yeah.
You can fit a Cyclone in there.
Yes.
Other smallish vehicles.
Yeah.
But obviously, it will take away
your cargo space.
So it's not... You can do it.
But you won't have any cargo.
But you won't have any cargo, so...
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, we kind of make our way upstairs. 3-man, 3-crew bridge.
3-crew bridge.
And it's you know, it's very, to me anyway, the bridge is very Origin. It feels you know, very, very sleek. Get a real nice view of the kind of front of the ship out in front of you. It's a nice place, and it's got the classic kind of Origin kind of hardened, and we haven't got any low-tech screens. It's all kind of projected and feels fancy. Yeah.
Does that mean you can see there's a lot of 600i influence, like from the original concept image that was done for the 600i?
Yeah.
So I was keen to get those. That sort of, it's almost like the black louvers.
Yeah.
And then get everything sort of.
To be honest, they were one of the things that we kind of kept referencing back during the production. Was like, let's just go back and have a look at the 600, because that's one of those kind of shapes that really sells Origin to me. And so I think it was good kind of keeping them.
And that, it was also, what's the Origin buggy called?
G12.
Thank you, So, again, we've got the louvers in
that. Yeah.
The 890 as well, is like all the bigger Origin ships have this sort of arrangement of a single centre seat and 2 crew ones, whether they're at the front or at the back. They're all sort of that
Interesting to see how the large shield defends it. You know what I mean?
And then Habs-wise, you kind of got the captain.
Has more than one
suite,
entrance,
and
that
you've
is
got
true.
The crew suite, and within those they've got their own kind of lockers. They've got their own kind of personal ship storage. I'm not sure if it's exact, but they're very similar in their kind of scale. But obviously the captain gets the slightly more space, a little bit more kind of luxury, because he's the boss. So.
At one point it was a 4-person ship, and then we reduced it down to 3, so we've got that extra space for the.
I'm learning loads of stuff I didn't know about today.
Lots of things changed during the concept. Like changing it from 4 to 3 might sound like a quick thing on paper, but then it's like you're losing a seat out the bridge somewhere.
It would have been
lockers.
Tough to fit an extra seat in that bridge though, because it would have you would have had to have kind of had them 2 banks. So it would have been a bit just purely visual sort of. It feels a little bit nicer weighted if it's.
I mean, the whole ship has essentially a triangle.
Looks fast.
Looks fast.
Yeah. And then, as you kind of progress through to the rear of the ship, this is where, like I say, originally it was
party time.
Yeah, it was the party room. We've kept some of the elements, I guess. There's still a kitchen, a decent sized kitchen.
It's still a nice space, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's like luxury. It's still that sort of luxury yacht.
You've got your wine fridge,
kind of feel, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got everything you need back there. You've got your food making facilities. You've got your breakout area, and then your big hollow table at the back.
And that was sort of like the, I guess like the operations area, and we tried to make that space feel like it was a little bit more focused with the hollow table than the sort of the breakfast bar that's just in front of it. And I think we tried quite a few different ideas there as well. Actually, I remember at one point we had like a war table with seating and stuff, but that was a bit tight for kind of maneuverability, and also I think we ended up going with like this standing kind of hollow table rather than a seating one, because when you first kind of like look at it, it felt like an extension of the relaxation area rather than like a kind of planning, what we're going to do in our operation type area. And then basically that kind of covers most of the 400, I guess, as a whole.
Liberator, what's this?
So we'll move from the 400i to something a bit bigger and something entirely new, which is the Anvil Liberator, which is Anvil's latest design spaceship, which is
landing ship
purely for transporting ships. So we wanted to do something properly and sort of provide that entry-level spaceship for that career. If you want to be a ship hauler, then this is the ship for you. It provides that good foundational base for it.
It's a fairly regular sort of process on this one. As Jared,
it looks so much like a landing craft.
Before, you know, these ships are often described as berths, you know, easy berths, hard berths, difficult berths. I think this one was a fast berth. It's been a while since we've worked on some Anvil stuff, so in terms of the lineup, you know, we have the Ballista, the Terrapin, the Hurricane. The Valkyrie, you know, is probably more sort of, you know, it's one of those larger ships. Then we've got the Carrack.
Yeah.
So a lot of work has already been done for those ships, and we've got, you know, we've got the modular kits. So in terms of the concept process, theoretically, it's smoother sailing. And in terms of, you know, our process, again, you know, it's that investigation, and, you know, each manufacturer has a sort of a loose set of rules. I'll say it's loose because there's always space for us to sort of slightly veer and slightly tweak the manufacturer.
Well, I think, like you were saying earlier, like manufacturers change with time as well as
they evolve.
Yeah, it's not like every ship came out at the exact same date with the exact same manufacturing processes. It kind of all.
Yes, yeah. And I think, I mean, that's kind of what I like about Star Citizen is we've got this sort of, it's this sort of rolling kind of like design, you know, it's sort of, design everything is being updated, and it, you know, it's nice that, you know, when we work narrative and they're like, oh, well, actually it's based on this old design, or whether it's a new stuff. So, you know, one of the early requirements from John, which you can see here in this fabulous designer art.
Top quality design block.
Yeah, I'm liking it. I'm not sure about that shade of green, but not quite Anvil. But basically, this is super easy for us, and also, you know, because we're working with a contractor about sort of laying out the limits of, you know, because we always, you know, we like to make ships big, you know, so it's always, okay, we've got our metrics, it has to fit within this, like, whatever you do, make it cool, but it has to fit within these bounds.
Yeah, it was quite strict on the landing pad size, but you need to fit a number of ships in it, but also make sure that it really kind of stayed within its, otherwise John will give us...
It looks like it's carrying two fighters.
I'll come after you.
Yeah.
Because on that image there, you can see there's the red box, which is the maximum bounds that the ship can be. If you go outside that, it literally won't fit through the hangar doors and ceiling. So obviously it has to be in there, and that's a max, not a goal to hit.
I am.
Because we've ended up in the past with ships that have a centimetre or two's clearance right at the edge. So when you're coming in and out of the hangar, you just clip as soon as you clip one side of it, then it throws it into the other one.
Yeah, it makes it difficult.
And you can see there for the extra small landing pads, the green size. So once you've got 3 of them, so at this point in the design
that link I just shared
3 extra small ships. By the time you've got these 3 green,
yes.
they're actually...
You can look at the Q&A there and squish summarise it.
By the time you've got these green blocks, so like, you've got to have space for these, and also got to fill in this.
Much there, some of it won't be relevant.
Start funneling yourself into...
Just one of these sort
of
answers.
I mean, you provided a reference image right at the start, which is of military hovercraft.
Yeah, the American, I can't remember if it's the Navy or the Army.
Yeah, and so that was like, I mean, people will see straight away the correlation between the two.
I love the idea of it.
But it, you know, it also makes sense, right?
It's a very functionality. It's a very functional ship, isn't it? So, and it feels like say, obviously, the real life version has been made for that function, and this kind of follows suit.
Yeah, definitely. And so, you know, we'll basically be looking at some of our exterior options, and again, it's always, you know, it's quite difficult when you have something like that reference image of the military hovercraft, because instantly it sits in your mind, and you sort of get, you kind of get sort of stuck in that thinking. And so, you know, part of my job is also to sort of push the concept artists and say, right, okay, well, what about this? What about that? I think, you know, it's always it's always a sort of dual role. You know, we sort of, you know, you work together, and kind of 2 minds is always better than one, right?
I love
so in this case, we're sort of looking at
you know, storage on its roof and inside.
First
what's going on?
So there's a lot of similarity with the Valkyrie. So there's the Valkyrie engines. You know, it's pretty standard. It's just one floor plate, and it's symmetrical. Then we look at some cleaner stuff. It's not, you know, it's a nice design, but doesn't really speak of Anvil to me. I mean, but you know, it's cool. I like it. There's some interesting things.
Certainly very hovercrafty.
Yeah. I think just too simple for
too wedgy.
Yeah. This one was asymmetrical version. We've got that massive tank on the side. What it does, I'm not quite sure at this point, but it's it's just visual exploration. We've got the asymmetrical wings.
122 meters long.
Sort of interesting
68
stuff.
meters wide, 24
At this
high.
point, we're starting to push our
400 SCU capacity.
Like terrapin territory. So we've got sort of essentially like the bridge, and it's kind of like got a cowl. It's like a sort of it's kind of like the little turtle head from the terrapin, and sort of mixing and matching. And so it's kind of interesting. Again, we're doing these things rapidly, so
has some pros and cons design wise as well, because obviously we have the XY metric, but you also have the Z. So a lot of our hangar metrics are quite tall. So the problem with
I really
this one
like
was
it.
was just to the height.
I'm buying one of them.
Like, the actual, actual height it would have needed to be would have been double that. So then you end up with this really tall, gangly thing. We've also shortened it by a third.
I know they're showing it on the screen at the moment.
Trying to get yourself into like the shape of a ship.
I'm looking at.
And
the
then
sales
here
page,
is like
fantastic.
where we sort of start hitting upon something that.
Look at this bad boy. Ships on the top. Banks and ships
It
interior.
makes sense to have the garages on that lower deck.
I love it.
Here, you've got two tanks,
guns
side by side, which is cool. It looks good, but it isn't actually like an official feature.
Yeah. It was around this point where we were looking at the double layer thing and trying to get these.
Oh, it's expensive.
2 layers to work, or 2 floors to work with
$500
larger ships. So we changed it
and
from the 3 extra small pads
because they pay VAT
to 2 extra small pads, which basically take any single seat fighter in the game and some around. So I think a Prospector also fits on there.
Yep.
And then we scaled the front one down to an extra small. So that's things like the Argo MPUV, Origin 85X, and smaller flying ships like that. But also, interestingly, that extra small metric is sort of the same as the medium vehicle metric. There's like a meter difference in height, which is the Ballista and Nova. So we went from these 3 extra smalls to 2 extra smalls on top, 1 extra small at the front, and then these 2 garage slots, which can also, if you're willing to try and fly your small ship in there.
You were playing around. You could fit quite a few combinations of ships in there.
I had a shot. I treated it like I was a fan and basically filled that whole carriage.
There was no sort of like door opening space at all. It was
it was cyclones and.
What size did they say they were inside internally?
It looked good. I mean, it looked like it looked like a ferry. When they're just full of the vehicles all just stacked up.
Just increases like the risk value of flying it, doesn't it? Like if you've got 3 ships on it, all right.
Yeah.
Got 15.
And need a big insurance payout. So once we have the an exterior that we were happy with, then it's then we move on to the interior, and it's only 2 crew.
Yep. So it's 2 crew. You have obviously the person flying the thing, and then the second person who can either sort of a flexible role. There is a turret that they can control. They can go sit in it and shoot anything that comes at you, but it's not really a ship that's a combat ship. It's a transporter ship. If you want protection, you need to bring protection with you or rely on the ships that you're carrying to provide that protection, which is another benefit of this open-topped ship is you come under attack, everyone can launch out straight away. You're not having to fly your ships out one by one out of a tube. They can get off pretty quickly.
We haven't done launch tubes yet, have we? One day
we do launch tubes.
Yeah.
Maybe, I'll think about that. So basically we've moved on to interiors. Again, it's just investigation of, we've got our function and what it needs to achieve, but in the last 2-4 years, definitely the last 2 years, like our process has just been a lot stronger in terms of player flow. So there's no more of the Starfarer higgledy-piggledy
mystery tour.
I mean, that was our first multi-crew ship, so the pipeline wasn't in place.
It's a really light carrier. I really like the idea of it.
I was like, I don't know. So, I mean, there's been a lot of learning going on, and so now it's like, okay, if I'm a player, what experience do I want?
Yeah.
Like, how do I get from A to B? I don't want to do A G to H to get to B.
Yeah.
None of that business. So as we look at these interiors, we just sort of looked at sort of different flow, basically, different ideas.
Front and rear ramp entrances.
So it feels quite good, and we sort of worked on, again, just flow. So if you're in the garage, you can easily get from the garage into the living quarters. You know, the elevators just run the full height. There's one for crew, one for passengers. So if you're under the ship, you can just easily get up and down. And so the whole process is a lot more streamlined. And there's even if you're in those top rooms, you know, and like it's, you know, there's a call to action. You've all got to get out. We've even put a nice little set of stairs that just run down the side of the ramp, and so you can just run down, get in your whatever vehicle, and then off you go. So I feel like a lot of thought was given to just improve.
And I think it's really nice as well, the fact that you've got, like say, that passenger section kind of sectioned off, and they're always ready. But then, like say, you were saying about the bows of the ship and how that's sort of all that technical stuff's like hidden at the bottom, and that feels nice that that's crew only, and you know, because you don't want passengers just, just
definitely
milling around.
And then moving on to, you can see here the garage space and where the cargo is stored. So originally the cargo was going to essentially take up one of the garage spaces.
It was going to be a compromise choice that players could make of that the cargo is stacked down, either down the middle of the lower garage or across like one of the pads, so you could choose. But then decided to.
Well, we had a bit of space. Well, basically, the concept guy went rogue. I was like, oh, what about this? This is cool. And we were like,
yeah, it does look cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
John, can we have this?
Come into a meeting. Oh, I've just gone away and done this thing that we're not going to talk about, but it's turned into the cargo storage room. So it's a good sort of save.
Well, we want. I mean, you know, for me as an art director, I want my team to feel like they can take those little forays off if they want, if they've got a good idea.
It's a really versatile ship, but just carrying and storage.
Out, and makes good use of the space. I mean, because like I said, the ship is quite big. So then we get to the fun part, which is when we get onto promo. I think it's everyone's favourite part involved with this sort of stuff, and that is really sort of, I call it selling the dream. So it's you know, you're really sort of honing in into what a player's experience might be. And I love doing this sort of stuff as well. So here we've got, you know, a fully loaded carrier.
It's the core of what that ship is for. Like, you have these smaller carrier-borne ships, is what Chris likes to call them. Like, they're not deep space fighters. They can't go long distances.
I'm interested to know what they're going to do with.
Need to be from
how far is the size 3 Contra Drive going to let you travel?
Unless you suddenly got an Idris.
The top tier range, isn't it?
This is what you're going to see going through these wide and long star systems. Like Pyro is incredibly large compared to Stanton, and Stanton's already quite big to go from one side to the other. So we really need these ships to help you lug all your stuff from point A to point B. Because if you do it in your Hornet, that's going to be, I don't know, 50, 100 little stops, whereas you cram it in one of these and send it on its way. It's going to be a much better experience for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think this is going to be a fun one to kind of get onto.
Yeah, I think your team's going to like that.
That's pretty much it for the Anvil Liberator.
What else we got?
Ship transporter at its core, 2-man crew, designed for hauling 3 spaceships and some ground vehicles long distance. Very cool.
Banu Merchantman!
Let's talk about the Banu Merchantman then. It's that ship that's been around for
a long time.
For a long time now.
I think fans have been waiting quite a while for this.
Yeah, we haven't really shown a huge amount of it beyond those original concept images. So
no, and I think you know, this is my second round on this, so I think maybe like 3 years ago. We did an initial concept round.
Around the time of the Defender, I guess.
I can't actually remember.
So long ago.
Yeah. But sure, let's. I think fans are going to love this.
So there's a few things that need to be updated for the Merchantman. Obviously, we've talked about this many times in the past. As Star Citizen develops, things get added, things get refined. We improve our workflow. So number one thing we had to do was look at the size and the scale of the ship, because I think it was 160 meters wide and 160 meters long. So it's in essence a cube. But
it's a very tall ship as well.
Yeah, but it was very vague because we had never done a full interior layout. So
not to like the new system. No.
Yeah, so we need to make sure it fit everything in. So it's always a good starting point. The cargo numbers they've never really been changed since they were originally concepted as freight units, not standard cargo units. So the scale of cargo has changed since we did it originally.
I don't remember freight units.
Yeah.
It was
It was a long time ago. The marketplace / bazaar need to have a good working out. And then lastly, we wanted to have some synergy between the Defender and the Merchantman. So we found a way to get a Defender hangar on board. So that obviously has big consequences for the ship. So let's talk about the exterior.
I guess thinking about it, seems so long ago since I started on this, but the addition of the Defender to the ship basically had the biggest impact in a way. Like just because the Defender is not a slim ship, is it?
No, it's deceptively big to me. Like the Defender, I always think in my head that it's this tiny little thing, but
in flight mode it's quite slim.
Yeah,
but then when it's landed, it's got this sort of
the big stance.
Yeah, so this has been. I think I've probably been on this for maybe a year, something like that now. And I said before, we did an initial round of concept work, and it was sort of done more in isolation. So we didn't really have.
Interested to know. Going to ruin my beautiful
sort of
boy.
Treated it more as okay. We need a corridor.
Thank you very much, Joe.
An idea of a marketplace. We need an idea of a bridge, and we'll kind of sort of. Piece them together, and so that was maybe like 3 years ago, something like that. And obviously processes have changed, as we've discussed today. It's more about the player experience and the flow and things making sense, less rule of cool. If we still have the coolness, we want it to work right.
The hangar's going to look like a wall plug.
When you kind of do it, like obviously this big ship, so you think, oh yeah, we can make whatever room this size and it'll be fine, but that kind of always sets us up for just a lot more headaches when it comes to our side. So by you spending the time to actually like fully flesh out the interior, it just saves us so much time when we come to actually do the production side of it.
Definitely.
Kind of takes all that risk away from us and puts it up front onto you basically.
Yeah.
So thanks, Paul. Yeah.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, we've tried hard. I mean, you can see here that the ship did have to scale up.
Yeah. We talked about earlier. We have those hangar metrics. And scaled up, it now
doesn't fit
the hangar metrics.
So we'll get to the solution in a little bit.
Yeah.
And just a quick shot of the front, and you can actually see that from the front it hasn't actually changed that much. It's grown a little bit in height, but gained a little bit of body mass, but overall pretty similar. I mean, we've the ethos of this whole thing is the ship was really cool anyway. Like. Everybody really liked the ship, so it wasn't that we wanted to change it just for change's sake. It was just we need to make it work. We do need to advance it, and so between myself, concept artist Mike Oberschneider, and Mark Gibson, one of the CIG's designers, we basically met twice a week, every week for months, and basically gone through this ship from top to bottom, inside to out.
There's a huge amount of ship.
Yeah, and hands down, this has been the most difficult and hardest ship to date. Like, I've not had a nervous breakdown. Actually, the whole process has been quite nice in a way, but it's just been long. I
think this is the one that
it's a marathon.
To begin with, I was really scared, and then the kind of like the closer you kind of got to finishing your work, the kind of like the less scared I'm getting and the more excited I'm getting, and I'll probably have when we get into production, I'll be like, oh no, what are we going to do? And then again, once we kind of actually kind of get over that hurdle, because it's quite an intimidating ship, not like just visually, but like
I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff. I mean, we're seeing here the sort of hangar opening. So basically, we've one of the sort of design philosophies of the Banu ships is they sort of incorporate tech where it suits them. So they use tech from humans, they use tech from Xi'an, whatever suits them to sort of achieve what their needs are. So for this ship, we've leveraged a lot of Xi'an tech. So it's a lot of that essentially levitation tech. So stuff doesn't have to be physically connected to move. It sort of hovers and then shifts along. So it's basically given us a lot of opportunity for creativity. So hangar here, it's always multi-part as well, so it's always kind of nice. Basically shot from the front. This is with the front guns out, which are S8. That's correct.
Big size 8 guns. One of the original cool
size
things
8
of the Merchant was all its weapons are sort of tucked away and hidden, so it gives you that non-threatening aura to start with, and when it needs to, then everything.
I was going to say, it's going to be quite a powerhouse, really, isn't it? Like, with its guns and its turrets.
It's a proper transformer. This ship.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's probably no area that doesn't transform almost, especially on the exterior. And again, like John said, it's just to keep with that kind of like,
just a friendly trader.
Yeah, just a friendly trader. Peaceful. Don't worry about me. Just
size 8 guns are strong.
Just pops out, and it's all business. So
you have to hit things.
Sort of multi-stage animation for the guns. Again, for the turret. I mean, the turret featured in the original. There was a hidden.
It was never really fully explained.
No.
There was a turret, man turret there that you could get in and defend with, and it was in that top fin, I guess.
And when the weaponry is unmanned, it's a lot easier. We can get away with a lot smaller spaces. Once you put a person in it, then it's a whole different ball of wax. And just the player experience, and it's twin gun.
Twin S5, so it's not giving you a little tickle. It's quite a big punch.
Even though it's only a turret, a gunner, you still got to kind of take all the consideration you're taking in a pilot seat in terms of their visibility and everything else. And
coverage as well.
And
did you say size 5 weapons on the turret?
You expect to see the big guns and the silhouette and
size 8 on the front guns.
Feel of being in a gunner seat, but like I say, it's quite easy for it to just kind of grow in complexity quite quickly.
So I mean, basically,
I was surprised that there was a whole big bay
tech again to help us sort of reveal the turret, also to elevate the turret. Still, we've got multiple ideas for that, so I think we'll just have to figure that out a little further on. And then these guns look tiny in comparison, don't they?
They're still sized. So these are guns that most fighters have equipped to them, but they're on these point defense turrets. So obviously, the ship was big to start with. It's bigger now. It's more of a target for missiles and torpedoes, and one of the best ways we have in game to counter those is these automated point defense turrets. So Banu again, humans have these phalanx style guns that shoot down incoming threats. We'll take that and we'll use our own guns. So it's got 4 of these on the hull. So there's 2 on top near the bridge, and then I think we see the other 2 underneath. So you've sort of got your 360 degrees protection from missiles from those. And then there's an additional pair of size 4 remote turrets under the wings. These are controlled from the bridge. The bridge crew mentioned them. So it's not lacking on.
The thing is, it can carry a fair amount of cargo, and it's got its own trading floor.
It's your livelihood.
You kind of need to make sure that.
I mean, basically, there's it's a bit of a TARDIS. It's a bit of a
cool.
There's a.
Thank you for giving me Banu Merchantman love.
Bunch of extra stuff that we've.
No, I've got nothing on my head.
So there's always been this feature on the Banu. It was there on the original, but it never really had a function. Some people called it the paddle, some people called it the flipper, but Chris was like, okay, it needs a reason to be there.
It is very dominant.
Yeah,
in its development, isn't it? So.
I'll always remember that one bit of Defender concept art where it's just there, just destroying a mountain. It flies over, just dragging it through.
So we've, you know, it's a multifunction essentially because one of the difficulties was at the top of that fuel scoop, sorry, is basically the entrance to the marketplace for traders and the public. So it was, you know, there's that challenge of what it needs to look. You know, it needs to do its job, but it also needs to look visually appealing because it's going to be the entrance. So there was, and we'll see that in a second. But it was, yeah, it was always a bit of a tricky thing to solve. And so, you know, again, we're seeing here as John mentioned earlier, the ship got wider and didn't actually fit on a landing pad,
which meant we had no hangars that it would officially fit in.
We
could only ever officially land at docking stations with docking ports or on a planet's surface, which is, as a trader, you're missing out on all the places you could land to do trading. So we had to find a solution.
I mean, the funny thing is, this is the simplest of the solutions that we came up with. I mean, there's probably like 10 others that we did. Some of them were super crazy, parts just folding back on each other and all sorts of things. So, but
BlizzCon's just a day of Star Citizen celebration and panels and stuff.
They're not small bits of wing to move.
Yeah, might get a kind of free-fly or free-fly week or something later.
Mesh in there, but there will be. We'll work it out for you, Ben. Yeah. So you can see here, this is basically a shot of what is the fuel scoop, but it transforms again and becomes this pathway to the marketplace. So you'll have this, basically why this experience, again, it's kind of the red carpet treatment. You're walking up into the marketplace. It's not in this image, but we will have, or hopefully, we'll have like softs, like awnings basically that will sort of come out as well. And so we'll have that sort of marketplace.
I think for me, this is one of the ships that really excites me because it is very different to, not a lot of the ships that we've done. And I think that sort of like initial experience, like you say, of seeing this thing kind of like come and land down and the traders kind of inviting you in and entering into, it's very otherworldly.
Yeah.
Kind of entering up that, walking up those steps out of, one of our kind of space station, like, our human space stations.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's going to be kind of really exciting to kind of.
I mean, the idea is that as you go up those stairs, you'll have, holographic
the banner measurements are
visuals of.
Worried it's going to be a lot more expensive now, though.
So they'll sort of pop up and just be spinning. So you'll have like. It's just that sort of shopping experience. And it's like, oh, okay, I can get that and get that. Or maybe even artifacts that the traders picked up. I mean, you've got options, basically. So, and then also the cargo that changed.
Cargo is a big topic. It was one of those things in the original concept, even digging out the original design brief, wasn't particularly clear on, was the cargo bay internal, was it external, was it... was it a walkable space?
And we kept it external for the first half of this development.
And then it was during a meeting where I think a bunch of us were in there with Chris, and we were all like, oh no, it's internal. And then someone else was like, oh no, it's external. And we just decided, like, let's make it enclosed. We'll keep the styling of how it was in the original concept, so you have that sort of, I don't know how you want to call it, shuttering or on the outside.
Yeah, I'm struggling to actually remember it now because I'm kind of like locked into this one. But it was more that it was you saw the cargo crates, didn't you?
Yeah,
they were very exposed, weren't they?
They were exposed certainly from underneath. You could see them all. Yeah. They were top mounted and they could all drop down. But that caused huge problems with the entrance case where if they could all drop down at the same time, then you couldn't get in the ship to start with. So
we did have a solution, but this is definitely better.
Yeah. So now it's enclosed. You just have one way of dropping at the front, and then we'll see later how it's all managed inside. So you can have the front ramp open and cargo coming up and down. The two systems are not interfering with each other. And your cargo is more protected as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I guess, a key element of it, isn't it? Is not only having the footfall into your marketplace, but these.
An interesting way of doing it. Do each of those sections come down, or is it
deliver them?
Move it around. I suppose we'll see in a minute.
So we're going to move on to. Very much appreciated. So we've been looking at sort of functional images of basically explaining.
It's that
how we've been dealing with design.
Banner Merchantman, Liberator,
art.
400
So now we move on to the sort of the sexy stuff of looking at how we've taken the existing Banu materials, from the early Merchantman, which there was a lot of good stuff on that, and then just progressing it a little bit further. And again, this is still probably this is subject to change still. It's previs. But in terms of where it's heading, it's really quite exciting. And so, not everything is modelled in this. So, there probably will be more folds in the metal, kind of like there is on the Defender. Where,
if you look at the concept images versus where it all ends up pivoting on those.
Happy Citizen Con.
There's a lot more detail.
There's a lot more. Yeah, there's a lot more sort of intricate sort of.
Does the Banu Merchantman hold any love
so we're just
from
kind
using,
of
or not your sort of ship?
We're kind of sort of turning it.
Can I have a pizza shop on it?
More ornate.
Yeah, probably actually.
Can I sell pineapple pizza?
Oh. Well, actually, Banu have really weird tastes, so they probably like it.
Get that impression. So, we're layering in the gold, we're layering in the sort of all the sort of.
What is the Xi'an?
Art Nouveau.
Like anchovies on their pizza, the monsters.
With a sort of Banu influence. We're looking at sort of taking materials like opal or whatever the Star Citizen equivalent is of that, and also integrating that into the ship. So it really is sort of a display of wealth. It's like if you've got this, like you're loaded.
It's the crown jewel of your fleet.
It is. So I think it's going in some really nice places. And so, we're looking at this heavy bruiser of a turret. And this is still work in progress. Ideally, there would be more work to do with this. And so we'd get more of the sort of curvature in the metalwork and stuff. But because we're on because of time scale and stuff, we've got to make some compromises. But we'll pass that information on to
I'm sure we'll
some
get
compromises.
On
Win. I've never heard them say that before.
So that's the exterior. We'll move on to the interior. Yes, we'll go over how it was, how it is, and then we'll go on a magical mystery tour
through the interior. Yeah. So it was a lot simpler, wasn't it? Back in the day, it was pre-metric, so we didn't have all the requirements in place.
No components.
No components. The marketplace is a lot simpler in here, and so with Banu Merchantman 2.0, or in my head it's 3.0, we basically moved on to a fully upgraded interior. Roll drum. And so you can see from this cutaway, and it's kind of hard to show all the pathways in this ship. I feel like I'm banging this drum, but again, we did a lot of work on pathways and navigation. And so
big boy. You're a big boy, aren't you?
As a trader, you're locked off
my
to
little
certain
merchantman.
route. As a crew, you've got access to everywhere. But as a trader, you're like, okay, well, you've got these areas you can get to. You can come in from the docking collar, and there's two different docking collars. There's
the larger one on one side
and the ship to station, and then that funnels you into the marketplace, and then you can go back down through the flipper or vice versa, the fuel scoop. And so, in terms of what's changed, we've had to create space for the cargo. The hangar for the Defender, that was a massive one. So a lot of just shifting the internals around. There's two elevators in this. There's one for crew. There's one for traders. Again,
I think that kind of like builds on the experience of someone coming to buy stuff there, though, and to me that's kind of like part of the lure of the ship is that, like you say, the crew have their own everything set up, but the kind of like the people that are coming to spend money, that experience is like the kind of like one of the core elements of that ship. That's what makes it kind of so special.
A different experience to coming on board it that way versus living on board it and
totally
working on board.
And so we'll see here that these are like previs images. These are straight out of 3D Studio Max with a bit of Photoshop magic, but it's just giving you an idea of that going up the fuel scoop or the market entrance. You know, you'll have
going up the fuel
you'll
scoop.
have the awnings all folded out. It should be a real grand experience. Will we have red carpet?
I kind of like, I don't know why in my head it's like Aladdin's cave. Do you know what I mean? That's
totally.
what it kind of.
And we had some reference images as well.
Oh, okay.
For the marketplace, and so here you've walked up, and you're again. This is always in this concept theory has always been this tree of life essentially. So basically, you enter at the base of the tree, and then it forms the spine, and then that tree branches out and basically reaches to the front of the ship. That's the theory. That's always been this organic theory.
The same in the Defender. You come in the Defender up the ramp.
Yes.
And then you have that big central tree which houses components, and then that stretches out and back around to form.
So the line work in this is a little more.
Will there be any Squadron 42 related content? I heard
it's less organic
from someone reliable
Defender.
that
gone for a slightly
there probably is going to be something, but
feeling.
don't know for sure.
Like doesn't.
There's nothing on the schedule
like
for it.
A tree that
Chris might say it at the end.
Build the ship around this kind of organic thing.
You need a size 8 toilet.
Absolutely. And so here is a capture from 3D Studio Max, just so it's super clear. Like this is the lower floor. So the marketplace is split into 2 floors, 8 shops on each floor.
Yeah. Or is it?
No, sorry, 4 shops.
4 shops on each
floor.
8 total.
And then you have this little walkway that sort of goes over the top. You can kind of see here, obviously, we've got a flying jellyfish. But the theory is that there'll be a holographic display, and hopefully the captain can choose what's on there.
Yeah. Special offer for the day.
Could be special offer. Could show a weapon. Could just have like butterflies flying around, whatever. But this really gives you a vibe of. The complexity of the Banu sort of folded metal, that organicness, and sort of just that overall experience.
The headaches that you're going to cause me.
Yeah,
I like the
and that Aladdin's
idea of it being a
cave.
shopping mall,
Yeah,
the little tiny
jewels
one.
hanging off the.
I really like those, like the kind of like the treatment of light in a lot of the concepts.
Yeah, I'm very pro Squadron 42. Looking forward to it.
But
it's a good litmus test whether they can actually make a game.
Jewels and stones that are kind of going to be used as light source throughout the ship, and I think that's kind of like really nice. Just something a bit different,
fluorescent tube.
Yeah, LED lights or.
Yeah, and so we really sort of pushed on that on this one, and so here is like. There's basically, as part of the tree of life in the marketplace, is the elevator shaft, and so you can then go up there into the negotiation room, which was in the original.
One of the images that everyone remembers from the original concept was that room with the table and looking out over the cargo.
And so we've kind of kept that, and we'll come to that in a second. But before you get there, you come out of the elevator and you're sort of in a central corridor, which also leads to guests' habitation rooms.
In lore, these trades often take a long amount of time, so there's a lot of back and forth with the narrative team on this ship in particular, with how do Banu trade, how do they eat, how do they... Because for the Defender, it was sort of very small scale, but with this, it's long duration. So these trades can take days, weeks, maybe months. So the people that are coming on board to trade need a place to stay whilst.
And it's not like the people that are going to be kind of flying this. They don't have in my head they don't have like a base of operations. Like this is their home.
Yeah.
So like you say, if you're trading I guess some of these things could be their livelihood. They're trading these really expensive high-end items, and that's kind of.
And you want them to feel special, like the thing about this always has been that making the people feel that they're in something quite unique. And so you can see here, in this image we've got massive gemstones. There could be whatever, but in terms of lighting opportunities, you'll have the core sticks and the light. If they're rotating, there's a lot of cool opportunities. And so here is the conference room, which we just mentioned. In the original concept, it was smaller, a lot more compact. But obviously, the ship has got bigger, and therefore we've got more space. But also, it's a display of wealth, right? If you can afford to waste a bit of space, essentially, if you could be like.
So it differs from the Kraken Privateer in the fact that it doesn't really have landing pads on it.
Nice.
Like the ship needs to land somewhere or dock with another ship, whereas the Kraken Privateer.
And so that's kind of what we've been pushing with. So there's a lot of commonality that we've taken from the original and fed into this, but then also pushing further. So again, you can see the sort of like carved gemstones inlaid with more gemstones, inlaid with gold, and so again, you know, in terms of player experience, it's going to be totally different to anything that's happened. And we've still kept that viewpoint looking into the hangar, so
the cargo bay.
Sorry, into the cargo bay. And so yeah, it's been quite a tussle trying to get everything into place. And then this is an example of one of the hubs for like if you're doing long-term trading.
I think it looks very underwater.
Really sort of based on, again, keeping with the organic theme, the Banu shapes, but pushing in a slightly different palette and materials. And so it's kind of based off of the interior of a Nautilus shell. And so you can't really tell from here, but
interior of a Nautilus shell
it circles back on itself. So there's a little
underwater
wall there that you go behind, and that's where toilet and shower and all that sort of stuff is. And then you've got the bed in the back, and then you've got lockers and little seating area. So you kind of like a real sort of organic journey. So again, just pushing on leveraging that Xi'an tech as well, so the chairs and the desk and everything.
Yeah, a bit of a Subnautica vibe, but yeah, a bit of that.
Just sort of held in space. So quite different. And so that's where the traders go, but the crew obviously has got access to the full ship. And so
slightly less grandiose, but not.
Yeah. So the docking cargo, that docking corridor is still quite elaborate. But
that's going to be shared between.
Yeah, it's more of a shared space. There's some more technical elements in there in terms of venting and stuff, and we still want to. You know, this has always been a theory of you've got your superstructure, then you've got your tech, and then you've got your layering of. The bodywork, the cladding, and then there'll be areas where the sort of tech is revealed.
So once we're done with this panel,
by
have a quick chat,
those two
and then I'm going to leave you with someone else because me and Tina will want to start to get the videos done on this presentation and the previous one.
I mean, it's going to be a journey for you guys of like how we achieve all this, but this is the corridor leading to the marketplace from the docking area, and so you've got that great big green ring, which kind of sort of that we kind of put that there and kind of thinking of it shows green when it's safe. The docking, there's not some kind of a ventage going on.
Yeah, I was having this conversation with the team this week actually about that exact thing, about kind of communicating to the player, but not in just as simple as something flashing on a screen or whatever else, but just having something a little bit more elegant.
So I think again this will give you some really good opportunities, and again it's just the new materials, the folds, and moving on to the habitation section where sort of crew can go. People who are familiar with the Defender will really sort of see the sort of.
Yeah, I like the direction the ship's going, so, because it's going in a direction and actually getting built out.
To put it bluntly, is reduced. And so it goes to more matte materials. It's a little less display of wealth. It's a little more functional, but still got that 3D printing.
You get a lot of that sort of like layering in here as well, aren't you?
Yeah. That in the middle is what did we call it? The magic tagine.
Yeah.
Ultimately, so it's fed from underneath, and you choose what you want, and then it appears, and the top comes off, and you get your food out.
Yeah.
And you get your cutlery.
You can speak the narrative for a while about sort of how our aliens eat. That could be a whole talk in itself, I feel.
It's a tricky one because it's an alien, it's a Banu ship, but it's got to support humans operating it. If you had an entirely Banu crew, if you were playing as a Banu, then some aspects of this you don't need, but as humans you do.
The Banu they cater for both, don't they?
Yeah. And so, a lot of complex stuff to sort of get our heads around. Engineering, this is a work in progress shot.
It's one of my favourite bits, though. I really like this.
And you can't really tell from this shot, but it's essentially set over 3 levels. You've got that main middle level, and you can sort of get on mini lifts to drop down to components or walk up the stairs to some elevated stuff. But essentially, this is leading to the main central engine, and that is like sort of counter-rotating all those elements, and so you get this awesome shadow play basically going on in the room, like really sort of cinematic.
Looks extremely cool in motion.
And if we can tie it to either were you talking about whether tying it to damage or the state of the?
It sounds like engine. A good idea, so I'm going to say yes.
So you know, if the engine's malfunctioning and it's sort of slowing down and stuff, that'd be kind of cool.
I'll claim that one.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure it was. But
and then you know, in terms of the cargo space, what we're looking at here is like the 32 SCU sort of cargo boxes.
These are the big cargo containers that you see in all the rest stops and the cargo decks. These are those, like the modern day big shipping containers.
Yeah.
They're quite hefty, and you certainly can't pick them up by yourself, and you can't really do it with handheld tractor beams. You need something big.
Yes, and so we've got a hefty.
I want a crane.
A moving mechanism.
I want a big crane.
Which you can control from this position that you can see in the screenshot. And so
that's the most exciting thing of the CitizenCon so far, the giant crane.
But
something else to back out, John.
I think big magnet.
You know, will be a really cool.
You think magnet over crane?
Sort of just below you, that's basically sort of.
That's a shame because I want to be able to run around trying to grab people.
The cargo containers into that
in
space,
like a little mini game.
Kind of drops down, doesn't it? Yeah. So there will be that sort of like, oh, I need the bottom one on the third stack. You know, all right, okay, let's shift everything out and.
There is that sort of mini game of Jenga almost with how you're gonna access stuff. Yeah. And all the time you'll be able to see from the negotiation room
the poor guy moving it around, don't mess it up. But yeah, as a result of all those changes, the cargo capacity has gone down a little, I think.
If you watch me as I move cargoes in, I will get it all wrong, I promise you.
Really out.
Yeah.
It's still big, so it's around 2,800, which is not a small amount of cargo by any means. So it's still well above most ships, but
I'm not listening to numbers.
I was going to say, I can't remember what our whole series.
The hull is over 3,000, so it's
still,
it's a lot, but maybe not quite as much as people were hoping for originally.
Although I think
it looks pretty though.
It does.
A lot of
people are saying
cargo,
2,800.
You're gaining so much more.
Yeah. It's always a give and take with these things. Of we could make.
Do we know when PTU 3.15 is going to start?
Humongous.
Pretty soon, not today. I'd expect next week for first wave PTU.
So moving now up to the bridge area. And what we're looking at here is very
Any news so far today?
Progress. I mean, we are
lots of new ships.
Literally working on this right now.
100 Eyes rule.
Left, had to think then, is
the Anvil Liberator
that we created.
A light carrier.
Round 2. And we're sort of leveraging that heavily. So
and they've updated the banning mechanism.
New stuff. But in
Thanks,
this new sort of configuration, you were able to
Thanks, buddy.
access the bridge, but you're also able to access the remote, not the man turret. It's more of an experience, and then also you've got side corridors which leads you to.
It's got a special name though.
It's like it's not a meditation room. I can't remember the name of it.
There was a approved name, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I can't think what it is.
It's kind of like a sort of sacred space where sort of the Banu can sort of pay. You know, we've kind of got sort of equivalent of prayer wheels. That's kind of the theory. So it's like this nice little calm space. So that's been quite fun. So there's a lot of the areas on this ship are very sort of multi-threaded. You know, you often have your central area and then stuff coming off it. So like I said, there's been a lot of thought given to navigation, and in this area also are two lifts which also can take you quickly to other areas from this bridge.
It's an 8-person crew now, so there's space for 4 on the bridge. Obviously, there's 4 stations there. You have 1 person that can go to the manned turrets towards the rear, 1 person that can fly the defender, and that leaves 2 to deal with everything else whilst you're flying around, because you can still trade whilst flying around, but it's probably not the wisest of ideas if the person who's come on board to trade has left their ship behind. So
I mean, it might be good for negotiations.
Yeah, good for negotiations.
Yeah.
But that 8 crew can then fill the 8 shops if you're just landed on a planet somewhere. You pull W. You don't need to be flying if you landed. You can man your shop, or you can let one person do double duty in shops.
Yeah, yeah. This is an example, well, a full-size image of that round 2 concept of the bridge, and again you can see the sort of the superstructure and all the layering basically. So you know we have changed the configuration since this image, but a lot of that theory is going to get transposed onto this new one. Same with the materials, and again just continuing with that.
Show me the image.
From back to front, basically, always sort of this tree of life and going to the nose of the ship.
By the time people
don't show me, I hate you.
This, we'll have actually had someone start working on it. So it's actually in production now after all these years.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
So. This is actually one of the ships that I'm really excited about kind of playing with in game. It's just such a kind of, like I say, it's got that kind of full trading experience, but it feels like a proper home that you can live on, and it's got a load of weaponry as well, which
if in doubt, then just get the guns out.
Yeah, you will buy it.
You will buy it. So that was the Merchantman. Pretty cool. Looking forward to seeing that go into production, go through production, because it's, by the time people see it, it will be in production.
Yep.
So to close our talk out, thought we would revisit the idea that we had last time we did one of these panels. We showed some concept ships, or some ideas for concept ships, talked about it, and everyone voted for them. Obviously, as this is pre-recorded segment, we can't interact with the crowd and get a feel of that. So
fight amongst ourselves.
Arm wrestle for which one we do.
Yeah, I don't think
so
it's not good time.
At the end, Jared will explain how you can sort of vote or express your preference for what we show today, and we will see what comes of that. But first, let's go over what we did last time. So we had this ground mining vehicle concept. We had the Xi'an small cargo. We had the Tavaran light fighter. People may recognise a sort of a pattern emerging here. And then a small refinery ship. So let's see what's happened to those over the last few years. So that small ground miner turned into the Greycat Rock and the Rock DS. The Gatak Raylan was the Xi'an small cargo, and that was very close to that concept thumbnail that we did.
It was, wasn't it?
We have the Asperia Talon, which was the Talon light fighter. And then the fourth one, which is a bit of a mystery.
A mystery.
A mystery.
I like this because I wasn't involved with this last time, but you've got a couple of my favourite ships in that, so yeah, it's good.
Read your mind in the future.
Yeah.
So that fourth one, the small refinery ship, obviously people don't know about, but I can pretty confidently say people will know about it very soon. Fingers crossed. So it's a new year. We'll do it all again. We've got 4 more sort of cuts of options here, so we go over those. Option A is a big explorer ship. So we obviously have the Carrack as the pinnacle of explorer ships, but there can always be more.
Yeah, it would be nice to get a bit of competition in for the Carrack, really.
Yeah, maybe something Misky, as we go in the Misk line.
Yep, I'm down for that.
Then we have a selection of ground vehicles there. So there's a right mismatch there. So we've got 2 little small vehicles and what looks like an APC based off the ballista chassis. They all look cool.
Yeah, the ground vehicles are kind of, although they're not as grand and exciting as the ships, I think they're just really fun. And it's nice. They're nice things to work on because they are kind of contained and they are quite small. They are, I was going to say like less complex, but they're probably not.
I do want a military APC
ship because they still require all the same sort of setup and everything else.
Yeah. But confinement.
Yeah, you've got to fit everything in a small space. But I think the ground vehicles kind of they just add that extra element of fun when you are playing with your friends. That it's you know, it's not all just about space. We've got some beautiful planets and being able to explore them not by a foot is good.
Yeah.
I don't see a floating noodle wagon there though.
Floating noodle bike. That's still on the list. Yeah,
it's on my
PJ
list.
Special.
Yeah, I've got a few that I'm trying to like just wear John down with.
Maybe maybe
Fifth Element food wagon.
Hover vehicle could be a floating big pennies.
Delivery bike.
Delivery quad bike.
Yeah.
Could be.
You'd go to like flying green zones though, wouldn't you? And that'd be like, actual kind of landing zones with all sorts of difficulties.
Yeah. So that's we have some Gravlev bikes in game at the moment, but this is a sort of a more stable, secure option because anyone that's flown Gravlev bikes has experienced probably some mild terror as they try and do
It's
turns.
been a while since we've done.
Yeah, we've not done I'm trying to think when the last proper Gravlev vehicle was.
Well, I mean,
Nox.
So
it's been a while.
Yeah.
So the last option D, is a bomber ship. So we have the Hercules A2, which is coming this patch. That obviously carries very big bombs. Or it's a collection of smaller bombs, but it is our only dedicated ground bomber. We have bombers like the Retaliator and the Eclipse with them, or torpedoes. This would be another single man, get in, get out, drop your bombs, job.
Nice. I know I've kind of said I like all of them, but for like I think the visual aesthetics of the bombers is kind of like the single seat bomber. They just look cool.
I think the hover vehicle for me.
Yeah.
I'll go for the Explorer ship at the start because I like big ships.
The Explorer ship 8.
Do you know? I was wondering if you were going to do it. And you
It's
did.
going in my head.
What ship do you like the most in?
Do I stop with this? No.
Out of?
I think a nice big Explorer ship that you can have.
APC.
All your friends on
The
board.
APC, yeah,
'cause that's
cool.
really where you
I want
have
it to look like Aliens APC. That's
Okay,
what I want.
Yeah,
getting
I'm
good
up
friends
for that.
together And just going off.
Maybe a little bit more detailed than
Causing
those
chaos.
because they were a bit
Visually,
blocky, but
small little kind of compacts are cool.
Can we have them all, John?
Maybe.
I guess we'll
Well,
find
what
out.
happens if we do get like a perfect split on the votes?
Yeah.
Like Jazz will come back to be like, well, actually,
Definitely don't come down trying to split the votes.
Yeah.
So we have to make them all. But
Just double your team, Ben. Double the team.
it could happen.
I'll try. Yeah, thanks.
So yeah, that's a little wrap up at the end of the show. So obviously it would have been easier to do this in person, but the world we live in doesn't allow that at the moment.
Hopefully next year, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Jared will come on in a minute and explain how to vote for these. Leave your comments and suggestions on them, and we'll see what happens. That's a wrap for us. I'm John, if you don't realise. I'm the vehicle director.
I'm Ben. First Citizen-Con done. Woo.
Yeah. Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
And I'm Paul Jones, art director.
And thanks for watching our Ship Talk panel.
Do you hunger for the challenge?
Right. We're just going to see what Jared has to say about this,
Against nature.
and then we're gonna call it. We want to get on making a couple of videos
And
today.
the courage to never give up.
Well, you do. I want to get some food.
You go get some food in. You can say goodbye to people now.
No, I will wait.
No, good for you.
I want to see what Jared has to say.
Yeah, me too, me. And I want to get some food.
Looks like you need a beer, mate.
Perfect. That is a perfectly good ad.
This is Nova AI. Application accepted. Report to Everest Harbor.
Why do I feel like I've seen
Welcome
this one before?
to Nova. Today you can join one of our
I think I
5
might have seen this
branches.
before.
Nova Core. Specializing in industry and commerce. Nova Skyline. Recreational activities and public relations. Nova Defense. Aggressive negotiations and security management.
Aggressive negotiations.
I love that as a term.
Medical aid and first responders.
Hostile negotiations.
And Nova Frontiers, the science and exploration branch. The future is in your hands.
Oh, it's Kin Shadow one.
Universe.
These are
We're a
pretty good.
hardened reaver on the edge of civilization.
I love Kin Shadow. This guys.
But I'm too old to find love. That is a load of space whale crap, and you know it.
We're a slaver in the heart of Cathcart. Meets new people every day, but just can't find that someone special.
I can't handle it anymore, Maurice. I'm leaving. But who will subjugate your slaves if you leave?
Perhaps a little magic can happen in the cold vacuum space. From the producers of Replace Me comes a romantic comedy with a pirate heart of gold, Sleepless in Stanton. Coming
Fucking
soon to
perfect.
Spectrum on Cathcart.
Kin Shadow.
That's amazing.
Douglas, you are legends. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
We build more than money could afford, and grow beyond what would define power.
You know.
We venture into the future and stand together in unity.
We are the Galactic Union.
Shoot them! Shoot them with all the ships! Allow them down.
Welcome back. You're watching CitizenCon 2951. Just in case you saw the Banu Merchantman and lost all sense of time, space, and reality there. That was the ship talk presentation, followed by another set of community videos. So the 400i is real and visible. The Anvil Liberator may become the hero of Pyro when players are left without all the gas stations everywhere. And the Banu Merchantman aims to take the crowd of coolest spacecraft in the game. Like it didn't have it already. Plus, you can vote to prioritize one of the next ships to move into development. Voting should be enabled now on the very special comm link found on the robertsspaceindustries.com website. And if it isn't, give it some time. I'm willing to bet the site is being hammered just a little bit at the moment. Now, as for what you folks had to say during the presentation, we're going to try this again. All right, Twitch chat, don't let me down.
We'll listen to this. This is great.
Yo, dog, we heard you like ships, so we made a ship to ship your ships, so you can ship while you ship. Ora Valido said, they're shipping the shippings. Ships. Enjoying CitizenCon a lot. Thanks for the amazing work. Medusa1 says, it's so stupid. I love it. I don't know which ship he's talking about, but we'll take it. Enigmarin says, the new most important ship in Star Citizen. That's still me and Jay Lee, dude. Blix88 says, Pocket Carrier. Yes, finally, Pocket Carrier. And Lars19 says, Balloon Merchunkman!
Fucking rip his.
I asked for the best of the best, and they gave me Lars19. Back to the 400i, that promotion should have launched just a little while ago, so be sure you check that out, as well as the pre-Q&A FAQ, where the community team anticipated some of your most likely questions and put them to John Crew ahead of time. I hope there's at least one question about the bathrooms there. Now, of course, what we really want to do is fly the 400i. And I'm pleased to report that the 400i is not only straight to flyable, but will be available when Alpha 315 goes to PTU for Wave 1 testers, subscribers, and concierge. And as for when that is, I'm told the platform team is literally watching this stream right now, waiting for me to say the word, and they will drop the patch. So all I have to do is say the word. Whew. That's a lot of pressure. But if I say the word and the patch drops, then they'll leave. And I'll be here by myself. Why would I want that? You know, this reminds me of the time when I had that big crazy beard that I said I would shave when 3.0 came out. And then right before 3.0 came out, everybody was on the Go Live call, and everybody was like, yeah, it's ready, yeah, it's ready, yeah, it's ready. And then CR made everybody wait an additional 5 minutes just to torture me. You remember that, CR? Pepperidge Farms remembers that. All right, I've pushed the gag too far, as it seems. All right, here we go. Countdown ready. And 3, 2, 1, go.
Nice.
That was predictable. All right. Let's go now to Allie Brown, Christopher Bolte, and Daryl Barnes, and learn more about Gen 12 and the multi-core of Vulcan.
Boom! So, I'm not sure when 3.15 is actually coming out for PTU.
I'm checking my launcher now.
I'm assuming
the launcher's had an update.
I'm assuming that was just a joke. We go check from an official source. Assuming skip/joke. I was expecting it next week, that's why I do that.
No PT.
PTU, yeah? Oh, sorry, go on.
No PT on the launcher yet.
No PT on the launcher.
That's assuming that I'd be wave 1.
SC leaks are saying wave 1 is tomorrow. But I do not have confirmation. People are saying that the WavePon PTU is out today. And that is very possible. I've just seen patch notes appear. Brum, brum, brum. So patch notes for 3.15 first wave PTU, which will be great. We will, well, that would mean that it will probably go up within the next hour, probably, because they'll fiddle around some stuff typically, and then it'll be available. So look forward to that. You'll start to see 3.15 PTU content over the next few days. Me and Zin are going to dash off to get some videos out. Thank you very much for joining us today.
And eat.
And we're going to eat as well. But yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to find someone else doing a watch party. I'll drop you off with Morphologists. If any of you want to watch this beautiful boy. I've forgotten how to do a raid.
Slash raid.
Thanks, mate. I have to go into my slash raid more follow. Is that gonna work? Perfect, it did. And let me link that over here. Oh, that was fantastic. Really enjoyed some of that stuff. I'm a sucker for ships. I like the fact they showed a bit of a gameplay demo, much more realistic gameplay demo that's going to be with us in our hands in a reasonable, hopefully reasonable amount of time. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, could it have been a lot more wow factor? Yeah, it certainly could have. I mean, so from what you saw, Zin, I don't think it had as much of a wow factor as previous Citizen Cons, but it had much more of a, this is realistic, and this is what's happening, and this is stuff we've been working on, the stuff that we're going to get in the short and mid-term. I like the Liberator, cool little like carrier. 400i being real was great. The updates to the Banning Merchantman, obviously a lot of people kept on asking about that. 3.15, it's gone to first wave PTU. Yeah, I mean, that's cool.
apparently we'll have the 400i to use then as well. So lots of videos up on that soon. Love you guys. Thanks very much for joining us. Hope you enjoy the rest of CitizenCon. And when you can watch that in the links that I have just pasted you. Bam. If you want to watch Morphologists, or you can watch the live CitizenCon 1 on twitch.tv/StarCitizen, or on the CitizenCon website. But I love you loads. We'll get some videos out soon. Peace, and all that sort of jazz. Say goodbye, Zin.
Mate, it's already gone.
Oh.